Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas on the city website. All items appearing in the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require any discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once all councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must speak and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting under the public comments section of the agenda. Okay, Patty, can we get everybody muted? And Rick, can you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rick. So I've got two proclamations. I will start with the first. We good with that, Patty?
What would you like me to do?
I'm going to start with the first proclamation, then go to the second one.
Yes.
Do we need a motion to take items on the agenda by title?
Not yet, not until he's done the proclamations.
Sorry.
All right. Proclamation recognizing Black History Month 2021. Whereas the first Americans were brought involuntarily to the shores of the Americas as early as the 17th century, and whereas Africans in the United States of America and their descendants, now known as African Americans, and whereas African Americans suffered enslavement and subsequently faced the injustices of lynch mobs, segregation, and the denial of basic fundamental rights, and whereas, despite suffering under slavery and injustice, African Americans in all walks of life have made significant contributions throughout the history of the city of Waterville, the state of Maine, and across the United States. And whereas the month of February is officially celebrated as Black History Month, which dates back to 1926 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson set aside a special period of time in February to recognize the heritage of African Americans. I lost my space. Give me 1 second. Oop, I lost my proclamations. Got it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jay Quello, Mayor of City of Waterville, Maine, and members of the Waterville City Council do hereby recognize the significance of Black History Month as an important time to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of African Americans in the nation's history, and encourage the continued annual celebration of Black History Month to provide an opportunity for all peoples of Waterville to learn about the past and to do better understand the experiences that have shaped the nation, and two, recognize that the ethnic and racial diversity of the city of Waterville enriches and strengthens our community. And three, encourage all centers of education in Waterville to include in their year-round educational curriculum the history and contributions of African Americans in Maine, the United States, and the world. You ready for the second one, Patty?
Yes, I am.
Mural proclamation recognizing Katie Jane Breyer. Whereas at only 8 years of age, Katie Jane Breyer established a nonprofit company called Katie Jane Rocks. And whereas over the past 4 years, Katie Jane Rocks has helped provide over a dozen scholarships to Camp Tracy, allowing low-income children to attend summer camp free of charge. And whereas donations from Katie Jane Rocks have also contributed to the Alphond Youth and community centers hot meal programs, backpack program, and Thanksgiving and Christmas meal distribution programs, which provide free meals to those in need in the community. And whereas the Katie Jane Rocks organization has raised over $10,000 that has allowed the Alphon Youth and Community Center to build an archery range, shelter at Camp Tracy. Whereas the month of February is officially that's it now. Be it resolved that I.J. Coelho, Mayor of the City of Waterville, and members of the Waterville City Council do hereby recognize and thank Katie Jane Breyer for her charitable efforts and help children in need in the Waterville area, as well as for the contribution made to Camp Tracy through the Katie Jane Rocks nonprofit organization. Ooh. Patty,
Yes.
can we get a motion for the consent agenda?
Can we have a disclosure of conflict of interest first?
Yes. Can we please have, anybody have any conflicts of interest on any votes that you're going to take? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Shall I conduct a roll call vote, Mayor?
Please, roll call.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, so we are on. Sheet.
Mayor Coelho,
Yeah, I'm trying to find that on the sheet. Give me 1 second. I lost it again. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Patty?
we could entertain a motion to read items by title only now.
So moved.
Seconded.
Shall I do a roll call?
Please.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Looking for stuff here, Patty.
So we're on to Resolution 34, Mayor.
34, 2021.
A resolution providing for establishing a city manager evaluation committee.
I think we're going to wait on this until after we do our retreat, which will happen sometime in March. So I'm going to make a motion to table this, let's say the second meeting in March at this point.
Seconded.
Patty, can I get a roll call on that?
Yes. Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Didn't really get a chance to discuss this, but I guess it's too late, so that's fine with me. Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to resolution 35, 2021. Patty?
Approving tax increment financing district, Colby Main Street properties and related development plan.
Move to adopt.
Up.
Second.
Get a roll call, Patty.
Before we do that, do we want to move to amend this to change the title?
Yes, so I'm gonna, do you have the proposed title there, Patty?
Yes, it is striking out Colby Main Street Properties and adding City Center TIF.
So I'd make a motion to amend to make the change to the title.
Second.
Can you give a roll call on that, Patty? How's that go?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes,
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Can we move it as amended now?
so moved.
Seconded.
So now it's back on the table and you can do with it as you will.
So
I think,
we're looking to table it right now, correct?
Right, unless anybody has anything they want to say while there's a chance for discussion on the floor. All I want to say is, one, the name change, I think, is to be a little clearer, that although these are Colby properties, this TIF actually has not very little to do with Colby itself. And so we wanted to make that clear. And then all I want to say, we're not quite ready to act on this tonight, but I want to say roads and sidewalks. Roads and sidewalks.
Whew, I agree with you. Lots of roads, lots of sidewalks. Councilor Klepak?
I actually just had wanted to hear from Steve, the city manager, on this just a little bit. If he had anything to add, I don't know whether he does or not.
Sure, I'll be happy to weigh in on this. We spoke with our consultant about putting together the final touches of the plan to send to the state CEDC, and he more or less surprised us with the requirement that we be more detailed and more specific than we have been up to this point. So I have a team of internal staff coming together tomorrow morning to develop the list of roads and sidewalks that will be passed on to the consultant, who will then write a narrative around that, and we'll be ready to submit the plan to the state by your next meeting. And we realize that that's an absolute deadline.
And that plan, that is for the coming fiscal year, or how far into the future do they need those projections?
In general, it's for the entire life of the TIF, but it can be amended at any time. And we do have a plan for the next 2 to 3 years based on the amount of funding or revenue that'll be received from the TIF. I believe we shared that plan with you, and if not, we will be sharing it once we get our whole list together starting tomorrow. Most of what it is roads and sidewalks around the downtown.
And the current plan is to capture 100% of the revenue?
Correct.
Yeah.
In the first 2 years, we'll focus on the south end.
Yeah.
Claude?
Well, I'm just thinking a little bit out loud here. This is going to be 30 years and a substantial revenue stream. It seems to me that we should start to think a little bit more broadly about what we can do with this funding stream in terms of not just doing roads and sidewalks, but some of the other pressing needs that the city has. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. In the light of it's going to be a long-term, 30 years a revenue stream.
So I'll let Steve talk more on it, but there's plans to do other things. We're just looking at some of the immediate needs over the next couple of years. The roads in the south end that lead to downtown in that general area, they need a lot of love, like a lot of love. And as you said, that's a 30-year TIF. Some of those other projects, like the let's talk about the concourse redesign or some other things that we may want to do in the future, we'll be able to bank some of those funds in order to pay for some of that. So like I said, it is 30 years, but there is an immediate need that we sort of have to meet. But I'll let Steve speak on it, and then Eric Thomas had his hand raised.
Claude, I just want to reassure you that the scope of the development plan is much wider than just roads and sidewalks, but it does include a substantial amount of roads and sidewalks.
Eric?
Yeah, just to reiterate that, the language in the TIF is pretty broad about what the things we'll be able to do with the money, and I think probably would cover some of the things Claude is talking about. I think there'll be more long-term planning that will go into some of those uses, but yeah, so for the next couple of years, we're really focused on roads and sidewalks in the south end, and then we'll be looking at the other residential neighborhoods that surround the downtown. The guidance that we got from DECD, I think essentially what they said was that it's sort of our discretion what qualifies as economic development and projects that are necessary because of the development happening in the downtown. So I think we have a lot of leeway with roads and sidewalks. I think a lot of this money will end up being spent on those things. But we have left ourselves some wiggle room in the language in the TIF so that we can take on other projects as well.
And when we put the entire program together this week, we'll send it out to all of you so that you'll have a chance to read through it and ask questions. And, you know, if you have differences, then we can discuss that well before you get to the next meeting.
Unless anyone else has anything, I'll make a motion to table till the next regularly scheduled meeting.
I'll second that.
Mayor, can we do a roll call?
Muted.
Shall I do the roll call, Mayor?
Yes.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yep. Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes,
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
And Jay, if I can just say something real quick, the intention is to start this work this year, just so people know. We are pushing very hard to do some projects this year in the south end. So if this all moves forward, people will see some work happening starting this year.
I'm with you, dude. That we have needed some work down there, and the infrastructure down there is crumbling, and they need some help. So it's time. And other areas of the city need some help, and we'll get there. Moving on, Patty, did we put resolution 37 in the consent agenda?
We did not.
Well, I thought we had discussed that. So I will go resolution 37, 2021.
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to Downtown Bagel LLC, doing business as Sunrise Bagel.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Is the person from Sunrise Bagel here?
I am not sure if they're on.
I was going to give him a shameless plug.
This is a new place, right?
Yes, it's where the old South End Cafe used to be.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not speaking up, so I'm assuming they're not on.
I like a
Okay.
good name, so we'll have to find out.
Right.
Can we move on to a roll call then, Patty?
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
yes,
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to resolution 38, 2021.
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a marijuana retail license to Wildfire LLC.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody from that Wildfire LLC here? Hmm.
Hi, yes, we are here.
Oh, do you want to tell us something about your
I'd like the
business?
sign.
Your time.
Yeah, well, we're excited to be in Waterville. I can say that much. Being a Mainer, all of my life, I'm happy to be a business owner in our state, and we're really just excited to be a part of the community in Waterville, and we're looking forward to doing business.
Thank you for that.
Do you reside in Waterville, or is this a chain of stores in the area?
We reside in Waterville. Me and my girlfriend are two of the co-owners. We live right on Western Ave in Waterville.
I like the sign. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very kind of you.
We had a contest to have the logo done, and that was the winner we chose.
Yeah. Good choice.
Thank you.
All right, Patty, I'll move on to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 39, 2021.
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to Legacy CP Maine LLC, doing business as Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is the owner of so I'm assuming it's now a franchise or something. Is the owner here?
I'm not sure. A lot of people have signed on, so are the owners from Wendy's on? If you could unmute and speak up. I don't think that they're on.
There are a lot of people on. All right, we'll move on to a roll call, Patty.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to Resolution 40, 2021.
A resolution regarding the Maine Department of Marine Resources proposed amendment to Kennebec River Management Plan.
Move to adopt.
All right, I'm gonna
Second.
let Steve open up. Patty. Go ahead,
You ready?
Steve.
John Ledwin is here from Mdmr to make a presentation to the council as to what this amendment is all about and how it might affect Waterville and the upstream communities from here. Because of a potential conflict with the hearing regulations of Mdmr, the commissioners asked that Mr. Ledwin be allowed to address the council and respond to questions asked by the council, but not from the public. Sean, is that a pretty accurate explanation?
Yeah, I'm a fish biologist, not a lawyer, but yeah, that's my understanding. Thanks.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, if you would chair the discussion, and once you're finished with Mr. Ledwin, he will retire from the meeting, and then you can take input from anyone else who wants to say something.
John, I'm gonna let you go on with your presentation and then see if any of the counselors have any questions.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll try to make it quick. Let me share my screen here. Is that, can people see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, great. So Hello, everybody. My name's Sean Ledwin. I'm the director of the Sea Run Fisheries Group at Mdmr. We focus on sea run fish, or fish that use the rivers and the ocean. So we do research, monitoring, and restoration regarding those species. The migrations of those species can be disrupted or stopped entirely by dams, leading to population declines or even extinctions. So while dams aren't the only threat to the species, they're often the most consequential. So we focus a lot of our efforts on improving the situation for fish at high priority dams. So just to give an overview of our management plans, we kind of do these across different rivers in Maine. We've got management plans on all the major rivers. They kind of set the goals and objectives for marine resources within those rivers, and we submit those to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is actually a decision body related to hydro projects. These plans are a guidance document. They're not an edict from the state or a mandate. They're not enforceable. They just kind of set the goals and objectives and provide some of the science and background behind and rationale behind our recommendations. And just so everyone's clear, major actions like if we were to recommend a dam removal, for example, those take like 5-10 years. There's major substantial input from affected communities over a long period of time. So this isn't something that just happens overnight. The state publishes a plan and all of a sudden there's a big change on the ground. The other thing is a lot of these restoration projects attract a lot of private and public investments, and so some of the issues around these bigger projects, like critical infrastructure, community, parks, access to boat ramps, those types of stuff, generally get dealt with often by private funds. Currently we're doing a management plan for the Kennebec. Just a quick overview on the map on your left. The Lockwood Dam and Hydro Kennebec dams are in Waterville, Winslow area. Are the kind of the lowest dams currently for those fish. Shawmut Dam's in Fairfield, and that one's actually under relicensing. The other ones are not currently. And then the Weston Dam is up in Skowhegan. So those are kind of a focal area of some of our planning through that other public process. So the Kennebec is really kind of a tale of two rivers below Lockwood Dam, which is part of Waterville, obviously. After the removal of the Edwards Dam and the Fort Halifax Dam and a bunch of Fishway improvements, particularly in the Sebasticook River, we had this kind of explosion of sea run fish. We have the largest river herring run, which are alewives and blueback herring in the U.S., record abundance of American eels, thousands of sturgeon, municipal harvests of alewives. Like if anyone's seen the alewife harvest at Benton, it's pretty spectacular, and that brings a lot of revenue into the town and also supports the $500 million lobster industry. There's tons of recreational opportunities, as you folks that fish below Lockwood Dam can probably attest to. You can catch stripers and shad down there. This is really like touted as a huge international success story. There was recently a national NPR story about all the wildlife benefits and other benefits for this. There's a National Geographic story just recently. So it's really a great success from the lens of sea run fish, but it's also helped and been very compatible with a lot of community work. For folks that are interested, I would encourage people to go talk to the city of Augusta. I think in general, sometimes people, if you're thinking about changing something large, it's kind of scary, and there's a lot of infrastructure, and you have to change a lot of things. But I think the dam removal in Augusta was really a testament to how those things are compatible with community development, recreation. A lot of infrastructure was dealt with, and there's actually a cool study that Bates did related to property values related to next to dam removal sites. So that's below Lockwood. Above Lockwood, it's a really different story. There's a ton of habitat for all these species. Atlantic salmon are almost extinct in the United States. And one of the biggest strongholds is the Kennebec River, and it's the upper watershed, the Sandy and Carrabassett rivers. So there's about 100% of the habitat is above the dam at Lockwood, 60% in the entire Kennebec for shad habitat. You could produce millions of shad up there. Blueback herring habitat, which the stripers come chase the blueback herring up here. So currently there's a fish lift, which is like an elevator for fish at the Lockwood facility, operated by Brookfield. It was touted as a, really sophisticated way to pass fish, but it's really proven to not be very effective for Atlantic salmon. Sometimes salmon we've radio tagged have gotten stuck below there for 100 days or more. It passes very few shad, although you could hurt your arms catching shad right below there. And it sort of demonstrates how some of the technical fishways that get proposed often don't work out very well. So currently the department, at the fish lift, we truck fish above these 4 dams or for some of the other species, fewer dams where they spawn, and then the adults and then the juveniles that are produced have a pretty bumpy ride going back down to the ocean. We've done some modelings, and almost half the salmon smolts that are produced in the Sandy get killed by the 4 hydro dams moving downstream, which is not conducive to recovering a iconic species by any means. And so Brookfield has put together some fish passage plans. They were rejected by FERC, which is not a fish hugging entity. They're a power entity that kind of balances all these uses, and they're not supported by the department or the federal agencies responsible. So hence we sort of needed to develop a plan to really protect these important resources in the state of Maine and try to come up with good solutions on the Kennebec. And so I just wanted to provide some background on sort of the resource and what these management plans are. And I'm happy to answer any questions, except for related to the new rule, which I need to be a little careful about. But
All right, so I got a couple questions. What's it going to do to our water level?
Well, are you talking about if like Lockwood was removed, for example? Yes. If Lockwood were removed, the water level would drop until about halfway between Lockwood and the Shawmut project, and then there's a hydraulic control in between those that would kind of raises the water levels up again. So it would drop the water. Sometimes the people characterize that as like it would turn into a mud hole or something. It would actually it would restore the natural falls there, and you'd have like a natural river channel and probably have river bars and that type of thing. But like I said, that's not even really under consideration under the FERC process right now, but is obviously something people are talking about. So,
well, may not be, but it's definitely a concern of mine.
Sure. Yep.
I've joked with my own city manager. I've said we live in Waterville. I don't want to live in Dryville.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean,
Don, could you take down your screen share, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's obnoxious. I apologize.
so water level is one for me. Obviously, I'd like to see fish thrive. I like to fish, as we just found out earlier. Mike Morris likes to ice fish. So, I mean, obviously, everybody wants to do their part. There are some tax implications for our city. Removing the dam would cost us a few $100,000 in revenue. That would be a burden on the taxpayers after that. Rick, and then Tom.
Sean, has Merck, Brookfield, along with FERC, Brookfield, Maine Marine Resources, and NOAA, ever collaborated in making a better Fishway? I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s when we did the Fishway for Sebastopol, which was an epic fail. Is there any collaborative there that has been tried or worked on that says, hey, instead of eliminating the dam, let's all put our minds together and come up with a workable solution instead of relying on just one entity to propose something and then have it shot down by other agencies?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, certainly some fishways do work very well. It's very like situational and species dependent. So yeah, we do. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has developed standards for fishways that try to kind of do best practices. You know, we do review and work with Brookfield, and we've actually designed and kind of signed off on a bunch of different fishways throughout the state that Brookfield and their consultants have designed. So, you know, it is something we commonly do. The success of those is really variable. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of like below Brunswick, for example, here at Lockwood, some of the other big projects the fishways just don't work, and they've kind of prevented millions of fish from being able to be produced upstream. So there's not, you know, there's quite a bit of like engineering hubris that goes on, and I've been part of that myself with designing and building fishways. But sometimes you nail it and it's fine, and then sometimes it doesn't work. So there's a lot of variability. So
have any of those plans, other than the one that Brookfield has proposed, have any of those been brought to light and judged?
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been a few different ideas proposed at the sites there. Just so everyone knows, there is another fish lift at Hydro Kennebec, which is also in Waterville and Winslow, and that one was designed really recently. That's an example where we did all kind of work together on that. But you know, there's just a lot of variability, and we were talking about, you know, maybe having a whole species blink out with something that hasn't worked in a few places. It's just hard to kind of keep going to that. And usually once a fishway is built and in place, the company, you know, there's not a lot we can do to make it better. So it kind of stays like that for a really long time. And, you know, there have been a lot of, you know, fish have not been able to get to their habitat from this location for, you know, 200 years now. So it seems like a good time to try to take a big swing at this and do it right. So
this next question isn't, I mean, it goes along the mayor's thought of Dryville. People along the Kennebec have purchased property knowing that they're buying a riverfront property that has a certain water level that does fluctuate given the dam releases. What do you do with those property owners, or how do you take care of those property owners once the dams are removed and now they're they've got an extra, 20 feet of 15 feet or whatever the drop in water level is, and such. How do you handle that?
Yeah. I think it's handled differently in different locations. Certainly that could happen. And usually there's like a long consultation process with different landowners, and we bring in engineers that do hydraulic models and can tell where the water levels are. And then like if there's a boat ramp or a property that something needs to get extended out or those types of things, often those can be, kind of dealt with. I think that the example I said about in Augusta, I think there was a lot of those similar kinds of fears, or up on the Penobscot River, where they did some big projects up there. And I think, it certainly changes things. It's a different look to a river, but it is a free-flowing natural river. And if you do remove a dam, and it doesn't just go dry, and there's the controls on the river are still upstream. And in Waterville, the Hydro-Kennebec facility would still be providing whatever run-to-river levels of water would be there. So I think the Lockwood Dam, it would certainly have an impact. It would lower the water level, but not for very far, because it is pretty steep up through there, and there is a hydraulic control. So it wouldn't be super impactful. Like in some other places, it would change the water level for many, many miles. In this location, it'd be like half a mile, I think.
Yeah, I can think of a stretch above the Shawmut Dam. That's where I was looking at that, is, in that situation. Not that it pertains to Waterville, but we are going to go from Waterville to Dryville, for lack of a better way, like the mayor said. And I want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row and an eye on the prize, because I know some of those properties are valued at being that you could put a pontoon boat in. And if the water level drops down to a point where it is free flowing, you're not going to be able to launch that pontoon boat out there. So that's my reasoning behind the question. Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Klepak, and then Councillor Frankie.
Hi, Sean. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
I have a number of questions for you. Before I launch into them, I want to say that I do strongly support efforts to restore Atlantic salmon migrations. You can confirm this fact as the biologist here, but it is my understanding that the Kennebec River has 13 species of diadromous fish in its waters, which represents the highest number of diadromous fish in any body of water on Earth, meaning that we live in literally the global hotspot for biodiversity for that type of animal. For people who don't understand, who don't know that term, it is an animal that lives part of its life in salt and part of its life in fresh water, going one way or the other. You could probably name them. I don't think I could probably list them all off the top of my head.
There is a huge diversity of fish and abundance in the Kennebec River. There's no doubt about that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so I have a couple biology questions for you, first of all, which I think will be the easier ones for you to address.
Sure.
Can you first talk about how important the alewife migration is to restoration of the Atlantic salmon? Because it is my understanding that there is a or counter migration that happens between the Atlantic salmon smolts moving in one direction and the alewife in the other, so that the salmon can avoid predation from the unbelievable raptors that I've seen on the river. I've spent a lot of time on the Kennebec and the Sebasticook rivers in a canoe, and I've seen it.
Yeah, they call that prey buffering, and that is there's so many more alewives than salmon. They kind of swamp the predators. And so, yeah, they do provide a lot of protections for outmigrating and actually adult Atlantic salmon. And we just did a study on the Penobscot River with the University of Maine that showed the amount of like seal bites and mortalities were reduced significantly with the increasing runs of river herring as part of that restoration effort. So that was a pretty cool way to do that quantitatively. So yeah, that's definitely a great benefit of river herring restoration.
And what you said 50% of the salmon that you're bringing up, you're trucking up to the Sandy, are getting chewed up in the dams. That's a sad number. What is the total number of fish that is making it out to the ocean? And then the follow-up to that is, can you give us a time window in terms of the actual frailty of this species? How much time does the Atlantic salmon have before extirpation?
Sure. Yeah, so we catch between 30 and 50 adults in Waterville. We truck them up to the Sandy River. We eggplant about 1 million eggs into the river with hydraulic. One of my staff developed a technique to do that. And so there's probably like thousands of smolts, they call them, that are the fish that are leaving that go out. And so we would expect we would get more adults to come back, obviously if there was a free-flowing river or fewer impediments, including the long impoundments there that kind of slow them up. But we don't have a great number on that. We do, the hydro companies have tested that at their facilities, and then we've also developed a model to look at that, and that's based on those two things is how we came up with that number. So
how fragile is the species? I want to know.
Yeah, I mean they're one of the most endangered species in the United States. They used to range all the way down to Long Island Sound. They're only in Maine now. They're not in southern Maine anymore. We only get a few we get up to like 2,000 at the best years, and that's with a really intensive stocking effort. So they're very imperiled. The Kennebec, with how the federal recovery is set up, is paramount to recovering the species. If they cannot survive and thrive in the Kennebec, the whole species can't recover by definition. So it's super important, and it's pretty fragile. I mean, they could blink out in 10 years or something like that. So
how monoclonal are these transports that you're doing? So how narrow is that genetic pool that you're currently transporting up there?
Yeah, it's supplemented with the Penobscot line. We use the Penobscot line for both the Penobscot and the Kennebec because the Kennebec salmon were extirpated because of the dams originally, long time ago. So they've been doing a pretty good job with like genetic mating and other things in the federal hatcheries, and so they're somewhat robust, although we have to keep rearing different life stages in hatcheries, which is kind of like turning a wolf into a poodle, and so it doesn't really help things, unfortunately, but that's just kind of the state, kind of a lot of tender loving care. And then but these big hydro projects are really the biggest controllable thing related to restoring salmon. And inconveniently they happen, salmon really want to get up into the mountain headwater streams, and there's often a lot of dams in between the
headwaters. So that brings me to my next question. The other species that you had talked about, aside just focusing on Atlantic salmon, you had said that 100% of habitat is above the four dams here, or above the Lockwood. How much of the habitat is split between the Sandy River and then the Carabasset, which I believe is above Anson? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sandy is like probably 60%, and the Carabasset's like 40%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we were to recover 60% of the native habitat for this fish, do you have projections for what how that species may recover? Give it, say, 10 years. What would you expect to see in 10 years?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to tell. I mean, we developed some different production scenarios. There's a lot of variability with the ocean survival. These fish go from the Sandy River all the way to West Greenland and back. So there's definitely some stuff.
Sink in, folks. Yeah, let that one sink in.
Yeah. And the eels come from the Sargasso Sea all the way into here, so pretty wild migrations. But they we did estimate that we could reach the recovery threshold of 2,000 if conditions were right, both in the rivers and in the ocean. So it is possible, but we're obviously, if we get 50 fish right now, we're pretty far away from that. So.
And what was the historic migration?
In the Kennebec, I think it was like 100,000 fish. So.
All right.
So can I keep asking questions, Jay? Is that all right?
Yeah, you get a couple more because I know Claude and Eric have some questions.
Okay. So let me look across them and see if I can prioritize here. So one of the questions I had, and, there was discussion. Councillor Foss had mentioned, with the removal of the Lockwood Dam, a problem with launching pontoons. That reach between the Lockwood and Hydro Kennebec, I've canoed that reach and had lunch on the rocks in front of Hydro Kennebec more times than I can count. So how many private landowners are there along that reach? I mean, I understand it to be, there's the high bluffs on the Waterville side, which is the train yard. And that's, that's a 40-foot drop from those bluffs there. There's not really any residential land along there at all. I don't believe.
I don't know the exact answer to that, but that is my impression also, that there's certainly some businesses there, and then there's obviously the Riverwalk, Hedda Falls Park, and all that stuff, which I think is very compatible with a project like this. But like I said, that would be part of the process of identifying all those issues, identifying, sewer lines, all that type of stuff, taking a good look at property ownership, and then before any decisions would be made on this. And like I said before, these plans are just a guidance document for fish.
I have two important questions.
Sure.
One of them, and I'll ask this first because this is probably the most important one to me. In the proposed Fishway that Brookfield had put forward, it got knocked down by NOAA and FERC, et cetera. Can you tell me more about the details of that and why it was rejected? And I'll tell you my thinking behind that. My interest is whatever solution happens here, and I am very interested in the salmon, restoring that migration, but I am also particularly interested in protecting Hedda Falls, Taconic Falls, which I view both through the aesthetic lens of it being truly the most beautiful spot in Waterville. It is the reason we all live here. And I want to make sure that is not negatively impacted, for the aesthetic purposes, the historical purposes, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the Fishway, it's the upstream Fishway. It's proposed on the Winslow side, and it's called a vertical slot Fishway, and it has a bunch of steps, and it has two 180-degree turns. So that's how you kind of get the elevation to go up. You kind of turn twice, and there's some of the turns have these kind of like circular water patterns that can really disrupt migration of fish, and so some of the fish that might get in there would get blasted right back out again. That happens a lot. They call that fallback. So that's certainly potentially an issue, and shad are very squeamish about going near fishways a lot of times. So there's no guarantee you would get shad to go in there. You probably could pass Atlantic salmon decently at that fishway, but I think a lot of the other species wouldn't do well based on our experience in other places.
And this fishway that had been proposed would essentially be concrete over the rock formations that are on the Winslow side. Is that?
Yeah, it's kind of off to the side there. Yeah. And then the company is always, they were supposed to have connected the flume to the lift. The elevator is supposed to be a flume that goes back down, and they haven't done that. So that's just a terminal point. And then the Lockwood spills a lot. I think its capacity is 7 megawatts, but it's always spilling, and that actually confuses the fish a lot too, and also doesn't capture the energy that you could be generating there. So it's a complicated site, and it is the lowest generating site of all those 4 projects.
It's half the size. It's half the size of Hydro Kennebec.
Yeah. Hydro Kennebec's like 15, and I think they generate a lot more there too. Weston generates a lot. Shawmut doesn't generate as much. Yeah.
So my last question is, what would be? So I'm just gonna this question is me sort of dreaming about what I would love to see, and down there, ultimately, I see that property, the dam, the waterfront, the waterfalls, as some of really the highest value property in Waterville in terms of its recreational potential. I lived in a town in the past that had a very similar, it was in South Bend, Indiana. It had a very similar riverway there. And what they did to solve the problem there was they built a whitewater rafting raceway. It's called the East Race, quite long. And they had a very gentle fish ladder that was adjacent to it. And because of the length of it, it was a little bit easier for the fish passage. It didn't have a lot of the really intense eddies that you're talking about with a short run fish ladder. And it also was able to maintain the water level on the upstream side of that passage, dealing with a lot of the concerns about Dryville, right? And the drop in the water level, but still allowing for fish passage, and then developing the space for recreational use. I would love to see something like that here in Waterville. It would naturally connect to Penny Bridge with, 2 Cent Park up there, with all the trails on the south side of the Hathaway, 2 beautiful recreational centers which don't have a clear pedestrian connection. Something like that could be a natural connector and a way to get underneath that traffic bridge. How feasible is that? How feasible is that a plan, or should I throw that vision out the window?
No, I think so. I don't know if anyone's seen. There's a bypass of the dam at Howland on the Penobscot, where they actually didn't remove the dam and they built a channel around it, and then it maintained the elevation. there. So we've also built like, yeah, they call those like rock ramp fishways. And those are, you know, if you have enough length, as you mentioned, you can do that. They do cost a lot of money. So it's not always the first choice from a financial perspective, but it can be done. And you can work with the natural topography and often make that much cheaper. And I don't think I answered your question about the maintaining the falls. I think a lot of these restoration projects, that's actually like a big component of it, is like restoring the falls. And on the at Milltown Dam on the St. Croix, we're currently working with the tribe and other partners they're going to remove that dam and kind of restore this like historic fishing area. And so that's a big component of that. And there's always like a lot of these restoration projects throughout the state. They really do a good job with like the aesthetics and adjacent parks and adding value to things and trying to, like, you know, make sure you can still get water for the fire department and doing all those types of stuff. So in general, it's not like people just blow these dams up and walk away. It's like a long drawn out process. It's not, you know, it takes 10 years to figure it out. There's a lot of planning and involvement with the communities. And so I think there could be a lot of cool things that you could do in that area that would add a lot of value. But our planning process does not make anyone do that or anything. It's just setting some goals for the
Council Cleanpack's got all sorts of money. He's going to make that ladder happen.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
I'm going to go Claude, then Eric and Rebecca. Did you have your hand up also?
thank you, Sean. Thank you.
I didn't, but I do have a question, so.
All right, so I'll go to
Eric.
Claude, Eric. I think you had something to say, and then Rebecca, and then we're going to let Sean leave.
All right. Well, I just have a quick question for you, Sean. If they remove the dam, the Lockwood Dam, will that affect the amount of water that flows down the Kennebec River every year?
No. All the dams on the river are run-of-river dams, so it does affect like the timings and stuff slightly, but not really. They're actually not storage dams, so even like Hydro Kennebec isn't. So yeah, it'd be the same amount of water. There might be some more variability, although there is quite a bit of variability now. It's not always natural. Sometimes it's related to how they operate the facility. We've had our staff kind of get kind of blindsided a few times on a few with water dropping when there wasn't a rain event or a dry event, stuff like that.
In other words, the Kennebec River flowing past Waterville will look like the Kennebec River flowing past Augusta?
Yeah, I think so. I think the falls would be exposed. I think the water level for the lower half mile above there would be a little bit lower, but it would still have a lot of water in it. It would probably have more natural river features showcased, like river bars and that type of thing. And you'd have a natural falls there that would, yeah. And you'd have shad. You'd probably have a lot of like shad. You could go catch a big shad at the river walk there. I think it'd be a cool thing myself. But
Eric?
there's a lot of considerations and possible impacts and a lot of stuff to be worked out for sure.
So just to be clear, I believe what you're saying is that even if the change to the guidance document that you're talking about, even if that's adopted, that doesn't necessarily mean that the dams are going to be removed, right? What you're saying is there'll be a lot more discussion before that happens.
Yeah. And I think since I'm not really supposed to talk about the specific guidance, like in general, the guidance documents are just guidance. There's a lot more discussion. Sometimes it does, it starts a conversation. It's, it can be used by FERC to regulate the product. FERC doesn't really order dams removed 99.9% of the time. So, but yeah, sorry, that was a long answer to your question.
And then also, can you speak to the current status of the licenses for these dams? I believe 3 of them are licensed through 2036. And then the only one that maybe is up for renewal now is the Shawmut Dam.
Yeah. I don't have that on the tip of my tongue, but that's not, I think Lockwood is 2036. I think Hydro Kennebec is, I think, around that as well. It's a while. Shawmut is up for relicensing right now. Weston will be up for relicensing in 3 years, I believe.
And so are those dams protected from removal as long as their license is active?
Well, there's another process that's going on right now. It's part of the Endangered Species Act consultation. So there's NOAA Fisheries, and the federal government is going to do a big biological opinion on the 4 projects as it relates to Atlantic salmon. And so that process will influence the dams, you know, the fishways, the types. But that process doesn't, I don't think NOAA can legally even tell them to remove a dam. So it would be conditioned like trying to provide the best fish passage with fishways and screens for the downstream fish and flows and that type of thing. So the DEP also has a role in that, a regulatory role through the 401 of the Clean Water Act. So the state has a role as well.
Councilor Lee?
I think, yeah, that's all I have, Jay.
Yeah, so my question has to do with the potential for these species to come back to life. Obviously, there's recreational benefit, and it's good for the planet. Is there any potential there for aquaculture that you are seeing for the future?
Yeah, I mean, there are some a new business in Maine that's doing eel aquaculture and recirculating systems. So actually, all the elvers, the small glass eels that people catch in Maine, they get shipped they go to an airplane, they get flown to China or South Korea, and they get grown up there. And then if you buy unagi, or if you buy it here, it might have come from Maine, been grown in China, and come back. So there's a domestic aquaculture thing for eels now, and it's pretty cool. They sell to like little small businesses and like the local restaurants in Portland and stuff. We actually have started working with the aquaculture industry to raise a lot of the wild salmon so that we can release them in rivers as part of a conservation strategy. So we've been starting to do that. There are other little opportunities here and there related to aquaculture. Certainly.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got any other comments at the moment? I don't see any. We're going to let Sean go. I know other people want to talk. I will say that if you're sending our eels to China and then they're coming back to us, I don't want them. They can keep them. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So Sean, we'll let you go. And I know there's other people that want to discuss this. And we'll go from there. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for all your time. I really appreciate it.
And do we have
Thanks, Sean.
From Brook? Is it Brookside?
Field.
Yeah, Brookfield. Hello. I know somebody was supposed to be here from there.
Hi, Stephen. Miranda's here.
Oh, Miranda's there. Go ahead, Miranda.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the plan that Sean covered. I first wanted to say, the efforts that we've made and that we're a part of with fish and river restoration really deserve their sort of own breakout session. But I'm going to sort of focus on our concerns about this plan overall. So, first of all, to start, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Miranda Kessel. I'm the Stakeholder Relations Manager for Brookfield Renewable. Like some of you, I live along the Kennebec, but do so upriver and Bingham. As you're aware, I'm going to talk about the Mdmr Amendment. This has significant effects on our communities, industries, businesses, and homeowners along the Kennebec. The Mdmr proposal to advance dam removal, it's a multifaceted issue with far-reaching implications that affect lives, livelihoods, municipal budgets, and so much more. We're asking you this evening to balance the diverse interests of river users in your community and support measures to sustainably balance river restoration and hydro generation. The Mdmr proposal sets a concerning precedent for Maine's businesses, municipalities, and citizens, especially given the current economic challenges. Altogether, we urge you to oppose the amendment in its current form. As discussed, the Mdmr Amendment has proposed a substantial update to the Kennebec River Fish Restoration Management Plan. The proposal would adopt a significantly amended management plan that would require potentially unachievable fish passage performance standards, and therefore implicitly seeks dam removal for the Weston, Shawmut, Hydro-Kennebec, and Lockwood dams. The 2020 amendment would substantially replace the 1993 Kennebec River Management Plan. The original plan was developed through a multi-year effort that included numerous public meetings to comprehensively review the river's various beneficial uses. Contrary to the development of the original plan, the Mdmr introduced the amendment on December 29th, 2020, during the lull of the holiday season and just days before coronavirus cases hit an all-time high in Maine. In addition to the ill timing and the hurried development, the Mdmr did not follow the customary public consultation process before issuing the amendment and failed to notify affected parties, including the City of Waterville and your stakeholders. We feel that the Mdmr is taking a non-transparent, singular, predetermined approach. The Mdmr's coordination with the four environmental interest groups who make up the Kennebec Coalition to advance sweeping changes in their all-or-nothing pursuit of dam removal lacks a good faith effort to achieve a balanced outcome. Brookfield has a shared goal in continuing the restoration of sea-run fish on the Kennebec River. However, in continuing these efforts, we must take an inclusive, transparent approach in doing so and make a good faith effort to achieve balanced outcomes where everybody's interests are taken into account. The Mdmr's new plan to advance dam removal would result in the loss of stable water flows and minimize shorelines, causing harm to the region's recreation and economic development prospects. The removal of the Hydro-Kennebec and Lockwood dams would result in the loss of their impoundments. So I'm going to go over the details about the lower Kennebec Dam's impoundments. The Hydro-Kennebec's impoundment has a surface area of 250 acres at a normal water surface elevation of 81 feet. Lockwood has a project impoundment with a length of 1.2 miles and a surface area of 81.5 acres at a normal high water elevation of 52 feet. Both facilities have flow requirements of over 2,000 cubic feet per second. The amendment's fiscal statement claims it will have no fiscal impact on municipalities. The Hydro-Kennebec facility generates $470,000 in local tax revenue, while the Lockwood facility generates $550,000 in local tax revenue, including significant annual payments to the City of Waterville. The total economic impact for the four lower Kennebec dams averages about $4 million annually. Brookfield, we proudly provide family-sustaining wages, and we employ more than 100 Mainers. Our Kennebec regional headquarters is located in Skowhegan. That includes about 20 employees, 12 of which directly support our lower Kennebec operations. Within our Kennebec workforce, 80% of our local hydro technicians are union represented. So in essence, dam removal would mean the removal of these 12 family-sustaining jobs. The lower Kennebec facilities rely on materials, supplies, and services of 42 different Maine businesses. majority of which are locally based. Just to name off a few, some include Millennium and Fairfield, Clark's Machine and Kodiak Steel in Clinton, FW Webb Plumbing, McKinsey Landscaping in Winslow, Chinbro, Kleinschmidt, Hammond Lumber, and many more. We also invest thousands of dollars each year in supporting various charitable and community organizations within the Kennebec region. In developing this amendment, the MDMR did not consider what would happen to property owners who have homes along the river, the industrial and municipal users who depend on the river impoundments, and the communities who benefit from the revenue generated from the economic and recreational benefits of the Kennebec River. And, you know, just to talk a little bit more about the role that we play within the state's energy policy. With the state of Maine adopting some of the country's most ambitious carbon reduction and renewable energy goals, existing Maine hydro must be part of an all-of-the-above renewable energy equation to meet these goals. Brookfield Renewable is committed to helping the state meet its carbon reduction goals by providing zero emissions clean energy now and into the future. The lower Kennebec dams have about 45 megawatts of generation capacity, and they remain critical in helping the state meet its carbon emissions targets. Moreover, given the intermittency of other forms of renewable energy, replacing the production equivalent of 45 megawatts of renewable hydropower requires substantial land use, capital, permitting, and much more. As recently reported in the news, this also does not consider the current transmission limitations faced by Maine's renewable energy producers. And to go into a little bit more detail about fish passage and river restoration, I do want to touch upon that. We continue to collaboratively work with state and federal agencies to sustainably balance fish restoration and hydropower generation on the Kennebec River, as demonstrated by our past and future investments in fish passage facilities that total $47 million. We are very much a vested partner in the ongoing river restoration efforts for sea-run species on the lower Kennebec. Since we acquired the lower Kennebec assets, we have been committed to the design, construction, and operation of upstream passage facilities and continue to work in good faith with the state and federal fisheries agencies and other stakeholder groups. All 4 lower Kennebec facilities have eel passage and downstream passage, and the Lockwood and Hydro Kennebec dams both have upstream fish passage. Hydro Kennebec's nearly $14 million upstream fish passage was completed in 2017. Lockwood's existing fish passage, originally installed in 2006, is slated for future improvements. Lockwood's final fishway design will be submitted for approval in the coming weeks. Design of these fishways was developed and finalized through close coordination with the MDMR, along with the other state and federal fisheries agencies. To date, just for the proposed investments, we've already spent $3 million in design, permitting, and studies for the installation at Salmon, Weston, and for the improvements at Lockwood. We also employ a full-time fish biologist assigned to the Kennebec River and 5 seasonal fish technicians. The team operates our fish passage facilities from spring through late fall, typically working 12-hour days at the height of the migration season, and our crew is responsible for all components of the fishways, including sorting the species of concern that would include the Atlantic salmon, American shad, alewife, and the American eel. The mentioned environmental groups have worked to stall or oppose forward progress regarding the design, permitting, and the environmental review of fish passage facilities on the lower Kennebec. And these actions have contributed to delays in the process. A recent example would be that they requested the Maine Department of Environmental Protection to deny our permit to construct an access road that would support the Lockwood Fishway improvements. So in closing, again, I just want to emphasize we all have a shared goal in continuing the restoration of sea-run fish on the Kennebec. However, we just don't agree with the all or nothing approach to advanced dam removal, which creates profound consequences for communities, residents, and river users who depend on the stable and continuous river flows and the river acreage created by the dams and impoundments. We feel the MDMR proposal sets a bad precedent for a diversity of river users who successfully coexist in balancing the Kennebec's natural resources. Along with the affected parties, the city of Waterville deserves a more even-handed, transparent, and inclusive process for such a sweeping measure that directly impacts the city's economic outlook and future revitalization efforts. So I just, it's a lot of information, but I just wanted to give you guys some, greater context about the consequences and sort of the precedent that this sets.
Seems like there's a lot going on, but I'm going to let Rick talk first. Rick, go ahead.
There's a mute button. Thank you, Miranda, for coming and giving us your side of the story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if we took out the 4 dams that are in this proposal, can we get the fish from point A to point B in the Carrabassett Valley in the sands without a fish lift?
I'm not, there's obviously a lot of different studies and opinions, and unlike Sean, I'm not a fish biologist. But we feel like, Atlantic salmon, they need access to their spawning grounds, like you had mentioned, and safe, timely, and effective fish passage will ensure that.
Okay. Specifically, Miranda, I spent a lot of time up in Caratunk, hiking the Appalachian and taking the ferry across the Kennebec. I just can't remember, because it has been a year or so that I've been up to Wyman Dam. Is there a Fishway in Wyman Dam? I cannot remember.
No, there is not a Fishway at Wyman. That's sort of the upper part of the Kennebec. So where Fishways are located, it really depends on the input of the state and federal fisheries agencies and biological studies to determine those installations.
Because I wasn't a geography major in high school or the military, Carrabassett's above Wyman Dam, right? No? Am I wrong, Councilor Klebeck? Okay. So,
yeah.
Well, that's and the reason I say that is there's some beautiful sandy passageways up there. So I would think that we would go that far, and hence why I'm talking about, like I talked about being above Shawmut Dam, lowering that water level, not the Waterville section. I'm interested in the whole package, not just voting on the Waterville section, but we're talking about dropping levels significantly and impacting the people that own property along the river. So that's where my head is at. Thank you for your time, Miranda. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any other counselors that have any questions? Councilor Klepak. Oh, Mike, go ahead. Mike.
Let someone else go. I don't need to go
Go ahead,
next.
Mike.
No, I guess I just had a question, and I apologize. So Sean had made reference to this terminal point. Do you manage that piece, like that there's this terminal point that salmon not make or fish aren't making it past this particular part of this dam? Is that something that you folks manage and are aware of, or is that somebody else's issue?
I think you're talking about referring to the Fishway improvements at Lockwood, and I did touch upon that. So, we do have plans to make those improvements to improve the Fishway at Lockwood.
And when are those slated for?
I'm sorry?
When are they slated for?
I think it's unknown at this point, but we hope to work on it as soon as possible. And like I said, we're submitting some design plans as early as in the next couple of weeks as part of this process. It's a long consultation review process with Fishway designs. They go through various different phases, and the agencies get to weigh in and sort of approve and study those various phases.
Right. Well, I understand, but I guess this has been a known issue for a while, right? Like in the purpose of, these fish passageways is to get the fish, and if that's not being affected, like I'm just trying to understand why it's not as important, and why it hasn't been done in the past, I guess. Hope is not a strategy. So we hope that it's going to be done. Like is there a strategy to have it done, and what is the timetable for that?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to get it done in the next, year to 2 years, as far as making those improvements. And, we are committed to an additional $32 million in passage facilities on the lower Kennebec.
Councillor Thomas and Councillor Klepak.
So just to re-clarify what I clarified before, the any changes to this guidance document, it's not set in stone that the dams will be removed just because this guidance document is changed. Is that correct? It's just any discussion of dam removal is a completely separate discussion from this guidance document.
I think there's some different opinions there. We don't agree with this guidance document and the way that it was sort of done without any initial input. And, we think it's just, it's a precedent setting, and has far reaching implications.
Right, but the main issue to the city of Waterville is whether or not the dams are removed. So I just want to make sure that we're not sort of conflating two different issues here. Like what we're discussing right now is not whether or not these dams are going to be removed. What we're discussing is this guidance document, which does not, even if it's changed, does not mean the dam will be removed.
I mean, I think that, ultimately it's up to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And like I said, it's, it creates a precedence, and, I think it's unknown at this point what consequences this would have.
I got a question, actually. Have you had this conversation with other affected communities, Miranda?
Yes, we've talked with all the municipalities along the Kennebec River, so from Norridgewock down to Waterville, and even some of the folks upstream.
What has their response been so far?
They don't, I don't want to talk for all of them, but I will say every single one of them has expressed concerns about this, and I know several plan to provide comment to the Maine Department of Marine Resources expressing their opposition.
I know I spoke to the Fairfield chair the other day, and he has some opposition to it. I'll be honest, I have some opposition to removing the dams only because I don't know what it's going to do to our waterways. But I'm sitting here on the fence because I really feel that we could do better for the fish. And as somebody pointed out in one of the chats, you guys put that fish ladder or the thing to move the fish in 2006, I believe. Is that correct?
So that was before Brookfield acquired the facilities. Since we acquired the facilities, we've been committed to fish passage installation on the lower Kennebec. Including those improvements at Lockwood.
And to touch what Councillor Morrison said, I believe him when he says that hope is not a way forward. I mean, maybe for Star Wars, but for us as a city, we need some more concrete sort of information. I know that for you, it's also financial because of your company. I've researched. I know that you guys do solar, you do wind, you do hydro. Is there a reason that we only pump 7 megawatts out of our Lockwood?
It really depends on each of the dams and how they were built. But I mean, that's a really great question. And, there can be improvements that can be made to existing hydro facilities to increase and maximize the potential that they generate. So, you could say, if there's more certainty and investment surrounding these facilities, they have much more potential for what their current capacity is.
All right, Councilor Klepak.
Hi, Miranda. Thank you for coming and talking to us. And I do want to start by saying that I am so thankful for Brookfield's efforts in terms of creating a sustainable energy future for Maine, New England, and the United States. And Canada. You guys are a Canadian company. So, Brookfield is a corporation, and when a corporation formulates its response to any issue at hand, there are several considerations that go into that, certainly. And I'm glad that you mentioned that you have a team of marine biologists as consultants, at least, or advisors. Maybe they're right on your payroll. But certainly they were not given sole discretion over formulating the response that you read to us there. So how specifically does that voice in your organization, the marine scientists that are in Brookfield's employ, how do they respond to the science-based formulation of the amendment that Mdmr has put together?
Well, I want to say core values are if safety is 1A, compliance is 1B, and we employ several fish biologists in Maine, and basically our compliance, our adherence to our license, and the consultation and the constant everyday communication we have with the fisheries agencies, the resource agencies, dictates our operations. So first and foremost, they're at the front lines of that.
Let me be more specific then for you. How do you respond to both FERC and NOAA's rejection of the engineered solution that Brookfield put forward for the fish, the initial proposal for the fish passage, and then further, how do you directly and specifically address the concerns that the scientist from Mdmr put forward here in the meeting today?
Well, first of all, the Fishway plans haven't been rejected. Those plans are ongoing. So, like I said, the improvements for example, at Lockwood, those design phases and the permitting process for those is ongoing and it's underway.
Okay.
All right.
So then, if I may ask another question.
Go ahead, Tom.
What is the, as Sean had noted, oftentimes the dam, the Lockwood Dam, is typically not at its 7 megawatt capacity because the spillway is very often open. I've witnessed that many times myself. Can you give me a number for the actual power generation, the average power generation in any given? I know it seasonally fluctuates, but for example, in February, what would the average generation at that facility be?
Right. I don't have those marketing numbers off the top of my head. And, that really varies day to day, especially with the grid demand and sort of the overall hydraulic water conditions. So it does vary. I'm happy to, share more information and follow up. And, also, to Councilor Morris's questions, I think this, deserves some more individualized conversations. As I conveyed, I'm not a fish biologist, so I'm a couple of steps back from the sort of the technical review process of this. But as you guys have specific questions like this, we're more than happy and willing to provide those answers.
When Brookfield purchased the dam, there must have been a study of the financial forecasts for the dam. All dams, particularly ones that are downstream of rivers with the name the Sandy River, are prone to silt impoundment that impacts the pressure head and ultimately the amount of power that a hydro center can actually generate, despite the elevation that it might have. Do you have any statistics on what the current silt impoundment on the backside of that pressure head is here in Waterville?
No, I would not. And I think, are you talking about in its current form or if it were decommissioned?
Well, there are implications for decommissioning, right? So if you blow a dam,
right,
silt builds up behind a dam, and the Kennebec has historically had some pretty mixed industrial use, and sometimes that silt can have heavy metals or whatever other toxins in that silt, and so dam removal does have its own environmental impact in terms of releasing that. But no, that was not my question. My question is currently, how impounded is it? And that's because that's going to affect the actual power generation that we're capturing at that dam. And then silt impoundment also releases methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. And I just want to get a sense of what is the actual carbon footprint of the dam.
Yeah, I can't. To be totally transparent with you, I can't speak about the numbers or the statistics around the silt impoundment. So, I mean, like I said, I think that's something that we can have a conversation offline about.
The last question, and then I'll give it up, Jay. I'm sorry. You had mentioned you had put a couple tax statistics up there. I don't have the revenue sheet for the city in front of me to check those numbers. There was and another point on that, is it possible for us to get the transcript that for the statement that you read to us? Because I would love to see that, because I didn't quite catch everything you said, but it was around $400,000 and $500,000 respectively for the two dams here in town. Are those direct tax payments to the city, or is that calculation done by broader economic impacts of the dam that you're?
No, those are direct to the city. So those are primarily, I think those are just solely Winslow and Waterville.
Okay, so two cities put together in that number.
No, so let me just, I'll tell you those exact numbers for each facility. The exact tax numbers for, we'll round it out. So for HK, Hydro Kennebec, they're $470,000. And then at Lockwood, they're $552,000. So the city of Waterville, they account for about $400,000 of that revenue share in direct payments.
I yield. Thank you very much for being so patient with me.
No problem. I really do appreciate your questions. And, I do want to have some more conversations, Thomas, with our technical folks.
Again, so for me, Councilor Klepak brought up a lot of good things. I don't really support or oppose the plan at this point. What we have in place seems like it's sort of been working, but there are absolutely some issues down at the Lockwood Dam that other residents have spoken about. The fish getting moved is important, not only for our region, but for other parts of the Kennebec. I'm hopeful that your company is going to find a way that's going to fix that sooner rather than later. but short of that, I'm going to open up to community notes because I know there are a few. And then we're going to move on. Willie. You're muted, Willie. Well, Mr. Grenier just knocked off his video, so he's on. Anyone else?
David Hedrick from Ward 5.
Go ahead, David, and then we'll go to Nick Bennett.
Okay, I wish you could get Willie too. He's a friend of mine from Trout Unlimited. I'm an officer of the Kennebec Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited and have been since 1995. The Edwards Dam was removed in 1999, and you're concerned about Waterville becoming Dryville. I would encourage you, once winter's over, to go down and look at the 17-mile-long former impoundment from the Edwards Dam up to just about where the Waterville sewage treatment plant is, and see how it has grown in and what it looks like now. The same is true. The Fort Halifax Dam was removed in 2008, and I would encourage, with great opposition from the impoundment abutting property owners, and I would encourage you to go look at the Sebasticook River now, which since 2008 has grown to have 5 million alewives at the Benton Falls fish lift at the Benton Falls Dam, the largest alewife run in New England. That's from nothing in 2007. I would encourage you to count how many eagles you see along the Kennebec. And in the summer, how many people have brought their lawn chairs to Fort Halifax Park in Winslow to watch the surgeon jumping, 800-pound fish jumping clear out of the water. None of that existed before the Edwards Dam was removed. And I would be really disappointed if Waterville were to take a position in opposition to the proposal, is what it amounts to, of Maine DMR at this point. All of Ms. Kessler's issues will be addressed in a long process with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission reviewing the licenses of all 4 of these dams. And, you know, the time for all, we're kind of got into the weeds with details tonight. This will all be addressed over time. Any issue that concerns you now. The only one that I think is a hard nut to crack is the tax revenues. I know, particularly this year, that's going to be a tough one for you guys. And, you know, I'm not going to promise you that recreational fishermen are going to restore that revenue to the town with sales taxes. There was a question about salmon, how far up the river salmon could get if we removed the 4 dams that are under discussion. The Sandy River comes in above the Shawmut Dam, and no, I'm sorry, it comes in. Where does it come in? Anyway, the Carrabassett River is unreachable because there are 2 dams in Madison before you get to the Wyman Dam in Bingham, and so the Carrabassett River is not under discussion. The Sandy River, and it's up in Reddington Township, above Madrid and in there, has some of the best spawning habitat in the whole Kennebec watershed, and that's why DMR has been stocking that with eggs. There's Willie. Has been stocking that with eggs and trucking such salmon as are caught at the Lockwood Dam and brought up. The problem is the downstream passage. Fish get entrained in the turbines of these 4 dams, and there's not much chance of a good number of fish returning to the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf of Maine. The Kennebec, I have been told, has a distinct genetic population segment that without it, I think this was referred to, without the contribution of reproducing salmon in the Kennebec River, the salmon population in the Gulf of Maine will be extirpated over time, no matter what good things are going on in the Penobscot River. So, and just to sum up, I hope that Waterville at this juncture won't take a position of being in opposition to the DMR's plan. Brookfield's main goal is to provide dividends to their investors, not fish passage. The fish lift that's at the Lockwood Dam now, I think, was built over 25 years ago. CMP acknowledged that it didn't work the way they had hoped. Florida Power and Light acknowledged that it didn't work the way they had hoped. And now Brookfield is acknowledging that it doesn't work the way they had hoped. And they're promising to do something sometime in the future. Meanwhile, Atlantic salmon aren't reproducing at the rate that we need. And we have an enormous shad fishery now in Waterville that didn't exist. We have alewives. We have harbor seals. I've seen harbor seals swimming around below the Lockwood Dam in the summertime. The fishery, the potential population of fish that came up to Kennebec after the Edwards Dam was removed has drawn harbor seals up here from Popham. And that's all I'd like to say.
All right, David. Thank you for that. Willie, and then we had one Nick. So Willie, if you can keep it to 3 minutes.
Yes. I'm on now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm not used to doing this at all. But anyway, I've been fishing on the Kennebec below Lockwood Dam for the last 21 years. And I have seen the population of the American shad improve immensely. The first couple of years, I was lucky to catch 60 shad in a season. By last summer, if I went fishing for half a day, I could catch that many shad. There are so many shad in the river that it's amazing to see that run. Unfortunately, they can't get past Lockwood Dam. They won't go into the lift. They try to do the spillway on the side, and all it does is decrease the water that's going to the Lockwood Dam. And the fish are not won't go in there. I've worked in the past with biologists. One day they asked me to catch shad for them so they could put radio tags in them. In a matter of 4 hours, I caught 37 shad. They were all tagged. I believe that Brookfield was doing the tagging. And I asked several days later, how are they doing? Where are the fish? And they said, the one that was doing the study said they all went downriver. Not one stayed. So the fish lift doesn't work. It has never worked. I can go there with low water. I can wade about 200 yards below the Lockwood Dam and catch shad all day. I just feel that having, what price do we pay to save the heritage, Atlantic salmon? The shad are only part of the solution to restoring Atlantic salmon. And like Tom said, you talked about, fish going downriver, they need cover. They need other fish to protect the Atlantic salmon. So my big thing is, I guess the last thing I want to say is that shad need to get to their spawning ground so they can help and create the river better than what it is today. And one more thing I just thought of. Last summer, around June, I was fishing below Lockwood Dam, wading there because the water was so low. And there were lampreys that were digging up holes all over the place below the dam so they could lay their eggs. The lampreys also are part of the fish that go up to their spawning grounds. The lamprey also build nests on the, if they were able to get up there, they go as far as the Sandy River, and they would probably build their nests just like they did below Lockwood. And the byproduct is that some of the lampreys die, their offsprings use the nest, and then the Atlantic salmon, if they were able to spawn in those areas, would also use the gravel nest that the lampreys produce. So it's a whole healthy system if the dams were allowed to have fish passage. And what I'm saying, the Lockwood Dam is at the bottom of the chain, and if they can't get past the Lockwood, it's almost impossible. Someone said, how do they get land? I'm sorry, keep on going.
Yeah,
Atlantic
I'm
salmon,
going to stop you.
if they're
really,
captured,
I'm gonna get to the
the
next
Lockwood lift, someone has to be there to pick up that salmon, put it in an aerated truck, and bring it to Phillips, Maine, so they can put that Atlantic salmon back into the Sandy River. And to me, that's
I'm not mistaken.
that's an awful expensive way to have fish go to the spawning grounds. Thank you for listening to me.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for speaking out.
If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
After Nick, I'm going to move to a vote.
Hi. Thank you very much, Mayor Coelho and members of the Waterville City Council. My name is Nick Bennett. I reside in Hollowell. I'm the staff scientist for the Natural Resources Council of Maine. We've been involved in all of the major dam removal projects that have happened in Maine. That means Edwards, Fort Halifax, and the two major dam removals on the Penobscot River. We agree with Sean Ledwin. Those have been enormous successes. We've heard all of the dire tales of looming disaster that Brookfield has shared with you tonight about impacts to property owners and mud holes and loss of property values, and none of those in those other places have turned out to be true. I'd strongly encourage you to talk to Bill Briggio, who's the city manager for Augusta. Talk to Roger Cates, who was mayor of Augusta when the Edwards Dam came out. That was a boon for the city. It's helped revitalize the river, and it's helped revitalize downtown Augusta. People pack the river shores in Hollowell in the summer and go to businesses so they can watch the sturgeon jumping in the Kennebec. When I first moved to Maine in 1997, we didn't see any sturgeon there. And now you can just go out in a boat anytime you want in the summer and you'll see sturgeon. The 45 megawatts of hydropower that these dams provide is not a significant amount of hydropower in Maine. Maine has a lot of very small and inefficient dams. We get most of our hydropower in Maine from 9 large dams. On the Kennebec, there are 2 of those dams, which are the Harris and Wyman dams. Those are the dams that control flows on the river. All of the 4 dams in question here tonight are run-of-river dams. They do not store dams. They do not store water, rather, and therefore they will not have a significant impact on river flows or all that much of an impact on river levels either, because all of those decisions are made up at Moosehead Lake and Indian Pond. That's what governs the water coming into the rest of the river. Those 45 megawatts of the 4 dams, that's significantly less than either the capacity of either of those 2 upper dams of Wyman and Harris, well upriver. And just to give you a sense, Maine is estimated to have 1,100 megawatts of solar come online in the next 5 years. Even if you account for the difference in capacity factor for solar and hydro, which means that hydro runs at full power more often than solar, that's equivalent to 5 times the electric generating capacity of those 4 dams on the Kennebec. We've tried to work with Brookfield. Brookfield has not been an honest player with us. A good example of that is that Brookfield was required by FERC to do a feasibility study looking at, among other things, dam removal for the 4 dams on the river and other fish passage options. That study concluded that at each of the 4 dams, dam removal was the most cost-effective option. Brookfield didn't even share that report with us, although they were ordered to by FERC. The only reason we found out about it, we got a different report that left the dollar values of those different options out of it. We sent a freedom of access request to Department of Marine Resources, and we were able to get the true report from Brookfield by doing that. So I would urge you all to take plenty of time to look at this issue. There's a lot more information that I can provide you and that many of the people on this Zoom call can provide you. And there are a lot of folks who feel very good about the removals of the Edwards and Fort Halifax dams. This is a complicated issue. DMR's plan is a fisheries management plan. It's not a dam removal plan, and they have no authority to remove dams. Their job is to try to maximize the restoration of fish in our rivers, and that's all they're trying to do with this plan. So please take your time with this. It's complicated. There's a lot of history to this. And I just want to point out that when Waterville was founded and named Waterville, none of these dams existed. So I don't think you have to worry about Dryville.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to go to Eric Thomas before I move to a vote. I think we've talked about this a lot. I think there's so many different pieces to this particular issue. We're not going to resolve any of them tonight. Councillor Klepak wants to save the salmon. I'm for him. I like to eat salmon.
Me too.
Eric and I've talked to Eric. I care about the tax dollars that come into the city from these dams. I don't want to burden our residents who already have issues and are struggling to keep into their homes. But again, these are issues that we're not going to solve today. And it sounds like there's going to be years and years of discussion to go along with this. Eric Thomas?
Well, I just want to go back to sort of the point that I tried to make with the questions I asked, which it seems like this discussion has just gotten way ahead of itself. We're not talking about whether or not these dams are going to be removed. That is not the discussion. And to us taking a position on this is not going to change that. This is about a guidance document. Frankly, I don't know that the city needs to take a position on this. It really has little to no effect on us. When it comes time to discuss whether the dam is being removed, then that's a time to have these discussions. But we're far, far away from that point. And so, I don't know if this is just people reading things in the newspaper and not quite understanding what they were looking at, but it seems like this discussion has gotten off into things that aren't what the immediate issue is about.
You think we should table this?
Well, I think we should table it at the very least for another meeting and possibly until a much further future date.
Do I have a motion for that?
Second.
Oh, hold on. I've got a couple. I'm going to let Councillor Klepak say one more thing, and then we're going to vote on whether or not to table this.
Yeah, I would just respond to Eric. I agree with what you're saying, except I would say that supporting the amendment is really taking a stance in support of science. I mean, it's really a science-based report, and that is not necessarily saying that we are going to necessarily, in the long run, as you say, when we finally have to address the issue of whether dam removal is going to happen or not, whether we're going to let science be the primary guide for our decision. It's simply endorsing the science-based opinion on how to best manage the fishery of the Atlantic salmon. And I think this is part of the question I was trying to get out of Brookfield there, was what were the scientists within their organization, how were they responding to the MDMR perspective?
Any which way they want them to, since they're paying them.
Well,
right, and what I would say, Tom, is that you're in a much better position to make a judgment on the science. I can't say yay or nay, good science, bad science. What I'm saying is that it sounds like it's really sort of beyond my scope of knowledge. And we're talking about rules or a guidance document for restoring fish, and not talking about actually removing a dam.
Correct.
So if we were getting to that point of having that discussion, then yes, I think it would be important for the city to take a position. But otherwise, I am going to go ahead and make a motion to table this indefinitely.
I'm going to second it.
Patty, can I get a vote on tabling this indefinitely?
Yes. Council Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
No.
Counselor Green,
No.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
That is the longest hour and a half of tabling I've ever had. All right, let us and we're not tabling because we don't agree. I want to hear more from Councilor Klepak on my own time. I think this is an important issue, but we just need to move on. Oh, Councilor Green.
Can I just ask one question of Miranda Kessel while she's still here? And that is, when you said it's a dangerous precedent, what did you mean by that? This report.
Hi, I'm sorry, I stepped away for a moment. Can you repeat that question? And
yeah, I just wanted to clarify while you're here with us all, what
Right.
you meant when you said that this report sets a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, it does. So, first of all, the folks that are representing the Kennebec Coalition, they've had a nearly 20 year long goal of dam removal. So to downplay it, I don't agree with that stance. To downplay it as just it's symbolic and it's just a plan. Basically the goal of this is, they want to sort of build momentum to support dam removal in your community and to support dam removal at the other facilities up the river based on these unrealistic fish passage performance standards. So, that's sort of the precedence that it sets. The precedent that, it's a state agency that's targeting one single company that's licensed to operate. That also sets a very dangerous precedent, if you're a renewable energy operator in the state of Maine.
Okay. Yeah, and I didn't mean to get into the whole discussion again, but it does seem to me that the report merely supports the restoration of fish, and that seems to be not happening with the current fishways that are in operation. But thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Resolution 41, 2021.
A resolution providing for support for an extended producer responsibility for packaging EPR law.
Eric, you're muted. Still muted.
Is there a motion on the floor or?
Move to adopt, sorry.
There we go. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Councilor Green seconded. Some discussion? Eric.
Matt and I had a meeting with some people from the National Resources Council of Maine who are supporting this legislation. Legislation like this exists all across the globe, across Europe, Asia, Canada. It's in the works in many states across the United States, including California. Frankly, if it gets enacted in a state like California, it's going to become sort of the national law of the land anyway. We have a serious issue in Waterville around packaging and recycling that packaging. A problem that frankly is only getting worse with everybody ordering their stuff on Amazon and getting it delivered in even more packaging. And so basically what this would do is sort of put more of the onus on the companies who produce this packaging. They would either be incentivized to put less packaging, or I believe there would be some sort of a penalty structure, and that money would be used to reimburse cities and towns across Maine for the cost of their recycling programs. So there is no real downside for the citizens of Waterville. There could be an upside where we could get some funds for our recycling program. And as I said, if one of these laws is enacted in a big state like California, we're going to be subject to it anyway.
Any other counselors? Claude?
Well, I see that we've got Bruce White on the Zoom. Is there any chance that this might pass the legislature, Bruce?
Hi, great question, Claude. And I know there are actually going to be a couple of bills. I don't know that the LD numbers are out yet. So I would expect there will be something coming out. In fact, I'm looking at co-sponsoring a bill to address this. Again, it isn't out yet, and there may be a couple of versions of it. So kind of have to wait and see still. Whoop.
Rick, I'll let you go next.
So our own state rep doesn't have a lot of information on it, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that we as City of Waterville, why are we proposing to support something we don't have a lot of information on at this moment right now without having the cost analysis done, the evidence that comes in during committee meeting, and all of that. I got to stand against it for now. I can't support something I don't have all the information on, regardless if a state like California adopts this and it becomes national law. You know, I need to see a lot more information than just what's here and what's in the bill, what's in LD 1431 from 2019.
Well, Rick, as California goes, so does the rest of the nation.
I think so.
I want to actually get some information from Matt. Matt, what do you think?
I actually don't have a lot more to add than what Eric shared, you know, or what Bruce shared for that matter, Jay. So I don't have anything new to add.
So I'm reading the whole thing right now. Again, I read it throughout the week, but over the weekend, we pay for all of this now, right? For all of the recycling in the stream. This is essentially saying that we support making sure that the companies that are producing this nonsense are having to deal with some of it. I mean, it sort of goes along with purple bags. I mean, if you create it, you deal with it. Shouldn't be left up to everybody else to have to deal with your packaging. And what this stuff does to our environment is just gross. I'm okay supporting something that's going to put some of that back on the people that are creating this. But that's just my 2 cents. I don't get to vote. So Flavia, and then Klepak.
Okay, so yes, I believe that, yeah, it is early on because we just got the LD numbers, but I support it. And that way, so we can create momentum, so we can have more people speak up on it. So right now we're just voting on to just support this. We don't have no details of the LD, but it's just getting the momentum, is getting support. And I say anything that we're gonna do recycling and get funds back to the city, I think that's a good thing.
And we're going to show up California while we do it. Councilor Klepak.
There we go. The question I had is, so the producers of this packaging, is this point of sale producer, or is like, what's the language? Maybe Bruce is the best to answer that. What's the language that's being crafted here? Is it coming out of retail coffers here in Waterville, or is this actually money that's going to be from somewhere else that's relieving a burden on Waterville?
I don't know if Bruce is going to say something.
Well, I would just say that, again, it's very early. I haven't seen any bill specific number. I understand from just speaking with somebody a couple days ago who asked me about co-signing, but the language isn't there. So I can't co-sign something until I read the language. You know, there are 1,600 proposed bills, probably maybe 500 at most, I believe, have LD numbers. So we're still waiting on a lot of things, and that's why I don't have much to share with you on that. But I certainly, you know, can send that info when I get it as well.
Eric, how's it work in other places?
You know, the cost is put on the people who not necessarily the people who produce the packaging, but the people whose product is inside of that packaging. And then the money that it generates is used to offset recycling costs of towns. That being said, what I'm going to say is, why don't we make a motion to table this? There's no urgency on this. Let's make a motion to table the second meeting in March, so that people can gather more information, and maybe we can have an actual LD with some language in it.
I would second that.
And Bruce, can you find us some more LDs that bring more money to Waterville? We need a few more.
I'd be happy to.
Good. I got a motion.
And I was going to say, you've already tabled a couple of bills, so a couple of items, so why not table this one?
Yeah,
Good
I'm okay
idea.
with it. We don't have enough information, but I like what it says. If we can make somebody else partly responsible for some of the nonsense that they create, I'm all for it. But let's get all our ducks in a row. I have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
Oh, I got two. Can anybody else have anything to say on this before we move to a vote? All right, Patty, can I get a roll call?
So just to clarify, this is a motion to table to the second meeting in March. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Thank you. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
That was one of my favorite ones of the evening. Resolution 42, 2021.
A resolution providing for establishment of a pilot food waste recycling program.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Big discussion. Rick.
I see this costing money. Do we have any input on that?
I think it's going to save us money in the long run.
Does the city manager look at that?
There's going to be less tonnage going through the system. Eric, you want to speak on this?
Yes, there is a tipping point where it actually saves us money. And that's about I think around a 10% participation. What I'm really looking at this though is it's a chance for us to sort of dip our toe in this idea of doing something different with food waste to see how much of an appetite there is out there for residents. We'll certainly get a sense, based on the number of people who are willing to put their food in some sort of container and haul it somewhere, how much people are concerned about this. I think the long-term solution may be some sort of curbside program, working with one of the private companies to get something like that going here in town. But that's a long way off. And any cost of hauling away the food waste will be offset by savings for us not paying to landfill it. And so there will be some cost involved, but it's offset by that food waste not going into the waste stream and having paid to be landfilled. And if there is any cost, we're keeping a certain number of containers there just based on how much it's being used. So if these containers aren't being filled up, there'll be less containers. If they are being filled up, we'll add more containers. So it's hard to put a hard number on the cost. But we do have someone here from the Mitchell Center to speak on that.
Right. I'm going to go to Claude, then Councillor Klepak, and I think Councillor Green.
Well, I'm just as happy to have somebody who knows something about it speak. But my only question was, are there large institutions that are already involved in these kinds of programs?
I think there are a few, and I think the school,
Colby,
can also be a good partner in that. They throw out a ton of trash. Eric, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, Well, I'd like to hear from the Mitchell Center about how the program will work, particularly, the logistics of getting the food to the containers and who gets to participate.
Tom, can we move to that person first before your question? All right, let's go to the Mitchell Center.
I'm Suzanne Lee. I'm a faculty fellow at the Mitchell Center at the University of Maine. Thank you for bringing up the conversation about a pilot, food recycling pilot for Waterville. We also have Mark King from the DEP and Gabe Govin from KV-COG because it's a joint initiative to begin doing what Maine will need to do, which is diverting. And Travis Blackmer is also here from the University of Maine. Food waste is a big problem for the state, having food go into the landfills. And currently food is the largest part of the waste stream, 30%. And it has to stop. The landfills were not designed for food waste. So it's causing leachate problems. It's causing other environmental issues. And the really importantly terrible thing is that it wastes the state a lot of money. The cost of hauling and putting food into the landfill is more costly than the alternative, which is food recycling. And that's simply because when you recycle food, it has an end product, which is either compost or biogas. Both of those two end products actually have a market value. So therefore, the processor can charge you less to process the food and recycle the food because they're making money with the composting or the biogas product. So in the long run, so right now, that's why we have created, DEP, University of Maine, KV-COG, this pilot opportunity to help educate towns and residents about how they can save money. We've also shown that in markets, in towns, which there are already many towns in the state, and big businesses. So right in your community, Maine Med is doing food waste diversion. Colby's doing food waste diversion. Thomas College has a composting in your neighborhood. Hannaford and Walmart. So talk about people that are working on razor thin margins, deciding to spend money against food waste recycling. They're doing it because they're saving a lot of money. So anyway, we wanted to bring it to towns in this way, doing a consolidated collection, trying it out, letting you see the advantages and the positive benefits, both saving money, encouraging, we've seen in markets where they do this, that your food donations go up because people start to realize when they take food out of the trash that actually some of it could be recycled, but some of it probably is still in good condition and could have been given to the food pantry. So usually donations rise at least 10%. The community there are very rare things these days that everybody in a community can support. Everybody eats, everybody has food in their homes, and everybody can recycle. In these times when most recycling programs are dependent on outside markets, is China buying our plastic? Who's buying our cardboard? Food is something that the state needs. Composting helps build our soils, which helps build our agriculture. So we never have to depend on somebody else to process it. We process it right here and use it in our state. So the list of benefits of this are endless, which is why we've come together, and we are not offering this pilot to every community. We picked certain communities that we feel, have the right sort of population. They have, when you're not doing anything yet with diversion of food. And so we would really like, and yet you have a lot of businesses in your community that are already doing it, which makes it convenient routing for the processors to pick up the food waste in your community. So you're really an ideal market to get into this. And with the support of the DEP and the Mitchell Center and KV-COG with education. So our commitment to you for this year-long pilot is that we will have, a ground, sort of a base level of education that will come in and prior to even starting this up so that people are aware and understand why it's important to put their food waste in their car and drive it to a consolidated collection site. We will explain to them the benefits. We have Hannah Creighton, who's from your nearby community. She will be working on an education program for the school system, so a K-5 program. So your residents will be hearing about it from their children. They'll be hearing about it through the social media that we're putting out, and they will understand why it's important. So anyway, thank you for listening, and if you have any questions. And I do have, I have a PowerPoint with all the costs, so we can show you that you're already spending to process your food waste. So this is not something that's an incremental. You are spending money today to take your food to the landfill, and it's costing you $69 a ton. We're offering you an opportunity with food recycling that when it comes to 10% participation, you start to be saving money at that point. So it's 60 something, 63. It goes down actually as low as $43 a ton when you get to scale with the program. So it's 16, and your 69 never changes, but you'll actually be paying $43 a ton once you start to get up to speed.
Which is money savings. Eric, and then Councilor Klepak.
And just to speak to Rick's concerns, while the Mitchell Center and DEP are offering support for this program for a year, there is no commitment from the city. So if we get 2 or 3 months into this and it's not working, it's costing us money, it's not worth the time and effort that Public Works is putting into it, then we can just get out of it. We're not the containers we're going to be renting, so we're not buying anything. So like I said, it's easy for us to put an end to the program if we find that it's costing us money and not working.
Now, does Saco have a similar system to this? I know Saco has jumped leaps and bounds in sort of what they've done over the past few years. We have family down there that they separate everything. Gabe, looks like you want to say something. You're muted.
Hi, yes. So most of Southern Maine uses one of a couple of different curbside collection programs. I'm not sure if Saco has a municipally sponsored one. If they do, Mark is shaking his head, so thanks, Mark, they don't. Most of the communities in Southern Maine, except for maybe South Portland, it's residential opt-in. So folks opt into a curbside program that they pay for. They set a bin out of their food scraps, and once a week a truck comes by with a trailer to pick it up. So that's one model. What we're presenting is a model that's based off of consolidated collection. So it's more sustainable in the long term. There's less environmental impact. And it works better for communities of different sizes. It can work in a population dense area, and it can work in a rural area. So that's what we're striving to do. And yes, currently most of these programs are based in Southern Maine. But part of the reason that the Mitchell Center and DEP came and brought me on is because I work with Kennebec Valley as a whole, and Kennebec Valley was targeted as an area, just like Waterville was targeted, that really could be utilized to show how this program can work in a bunch of different areas, and eventually we can see this working statewide.
I remember being on the solid waste committee a couple years ago, and we had discussions about this, even back then, that this was a possibility coming down the future. Councilor Green and Klepak, play rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify how this will work for people. They take their waste, food waste, and they drive it to a location to dump in a large, like a dumpster.
Yeah, it's a consolidated collection. It's sort of the first step, and it doesn't preclude curbside collection, but it gets people in the habit of taking, separating right. The food from but they do transport it, but it's really, usually they have a smaller container, and in some communities they actually provide those to the residents, but they have a smaller container, and that's what they use to go back and forth to the drop-off spot.
Okay, and I'll just say I have spent some time in Canada in various cities where this program's in effect, and it's sobering actually to realize how much food is wasted when you actually start to have to separate it. So I just want to thank you very much for bringing this to us as an opportunity. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Councilor Klepak, then I'll go to Mark King.
amazing if I wait till the end how many of my questions get answered just by listening. But I do have a couple. So this would still be administered by the city, and the consolidated waste is all going to go to Matt's crew to be composted someplace. Is that the idea here? No, Eric, you're shaking your head.
No, I mean,
yeah, not quite. We're going to have the consolidated sites, Counselor. Hopefully 2 of them we haven't identified yet, but hoping to contract with a group like AgriCycle to come pick up. As far as the city's role goes, it would be, working with those sites to make sure the sites are always accessible, that the bins are clean, that the signage is up, and, everyone understands the program, working closely with folks from KB Cog and the Mitchell Center to make sure, that they're holding up their end of the bargain on the education piece, making sure that folks in town understands what a great opportunity this is. And really, I see very little risks. Some cost, yes, for AgriCycle, 1, for the bin rental, 2. But other than that, I just think it's a great opportunity for us to give it a shot and to see if it could work, to reduce those tipping fees on the municipal solid waste side.
And saving on those tipping fees would save us so much money.
So the other question I have along this line is, how do we get that 10%? I think if it were curbside, it's more effort. It would certainly be easier to get to that 10%. How do we get to 10% to convince people to bring it to these 2 consolidated sites? Secondly, in other systems here in Maine, other municipalities in Maine that have this consolidated, how good is that waste stream? How contaminated is it with non-compostables? Because I imagine that happens, right? People chuck stuff in there that shouldn't go in.
I think Mark has an answer to that.
Yes. First, I wanted to echo what Eric said, Councilor Thomas said. 3 months into it, you'll know if it's working or not. And so your risk is really not that significant. But in communities where we have this consolidated collection, mostly in southern Maine, we find that the waste stream is very clean because we do a lot of education at the forefront, but also the kiosks where these containers are kept are highly labeled with what can go in and what can't go in. So even at the last effort before you drop it into the container, you have signs telling you whether or not you're doing a good job. So the whole key to make this successful is to have lots and lots and lots of education, not just at the beginning, but all the way through the process. The one thing that I wanted to say that I've been doing this for about 30 years in the state. I'm the organics management specialist for the whole state of Maine. I have found one of the coolest things of this whole process is people start realizing that they're buying way too much when they see how much they're throwing away. And it helps us buy a lot smarter, not waste as many resources, and it actually puts food in the right direction. So I think there's a lot of important lessons people will get out of this exercise, more than just the benefits of getting it out of the landfill.
I'm happy to get it out of the landfill and make sure that, like I said, I think you can get some buy-in by getting landlords to talk to their tenants. All these landlords that have to put out these dumpsters that require them, the trailer park up on West River Road and some of the other areas in the community where if they separated their food from their trash, those landlords would save a ton of money. I think they may want to push them into something similar. I'm interested to see how much we collect.
You know, the education piece will be very important. And what we're doing already in the pilots that we already have approved with some towns, we're doing a grant, we're bringing together community leaders to talk to them about it and to get them to support it even before it's out there. So to use all the channels of communication to make sure everybody understands. You also are going to have a state-of-the-art food recycling program. So at various points in food recycling, they have allowed paper and other things to get into the food recycling, which has not been a good thing. This one, we will clearly sign and explain that it's just a food recycling. There's no confusion about paper. There's no confusion about, oh, maybe this could go in, maybe not, because it's all food-based. And that will really help. And the signage, one of the things we learned about the signage is, yes, what can go in and what should not go in. In addition, a little simple diagram that shows them that what goes in comes back and goes into your soil, so that you understand, okay, you don't want to put baby diapers because you don't want that showing up in your garden patch. In addition, we've also found that telling taxpayers that by diverting their food waste into these bins, they're actually saving on tax dollars, because we know at the end it will save on those tipping fees. And so they get reinforced by understanding that this is really the right thing to do financially, and because it's saving them money when they don't waste food in their homes.
Go ahead, Klebeck.
You had mentioned, ma'am, I'm sorry, from the Mitchell Center, I missed your
Suzanne.
name. Suzanne? You had mentioned a PowerPoint with all these statistics. Would you be able to share that with the council? Not now, but mail it to us. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was provided.
Oh,
I think it's in the packet.
oh, is it? Okay, yeah. Sorry. Thank
That's
you.
okay. That's why I didn't present it tonight, because I thought it had already been.
I think it's in our packet. I can see it here. I just have one more question. Are there any municipalities our size that you work with that it's not working for?
The only time that we've seen it, I mean, there's a lot of success stories, and that's in the presentation. It shows you the town, Skowhegan, it's in Lincoln County. The ones where it has not been successful, and we've learned, is that the education, they sort of thought if they put the bin out, people would figure out what that was for and start directing themselves there. So we know that that is not the case. I mean, it's a new behavior that you're trying to introduce to people, so you need to explain to them why they should do it. Your timing is very good, because the DEP has actually awarded a grant for a statewide food waste recycling education program. So it's going to be a topic of statewide discussion. And, we believe that Waterville can be a leader in that conversation. So we are taking the education piece very seriously.
As I've said before, we're the largest economies in the state. We should act like it. I'm going to go with Mark, and then we're going to move this to a vote.
I just wanted to say really quickly, communities where this has not worked is where they have not provided the education at the beginning, and the bins didn't get filled enough, so the people that came to collect just felt it wasn't worth their effort, and so they agreed to part the relationship. What we hope to do is develop clusters of communities, and to try and get several other towns around you guys to join in, so we can get a good collection density and make it worthwhile. The more that's collected, the more we'll be able to make this work statewide. So community clusters working together are really important, and that will be one of the goals for this year.
So we're hopeful that's not going to happen here, because you guys are going to spend a lot of time educating our residents on the benefits of why this is good. And there are other community organizations in the area, like the South End Neighborhood Association, South End Teen Center, that I know that you guys could go and talk to and get some buy-in there. Again, I'm in favor of anything that's going to save my residents money. And this looks like a decent way to do it.
I had one more question on a point that Mark made there. I just want to be clear about, I'm really in favor of this personally, very much in favor. I just want to understand all the dynamics of it. So for citizens in Waterville, such as myself, for example, who already composts all of our food waste on our property, the savings to the town, those people, would they be encouraged to participate in this program or not?
No,
because they're not actually, we're not removing anything from the waste stream by doing that. So really it's for people, this program is for people who do not currently compost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But where we need you is to help with the education, because you already understand why it's important. So you can be pivotal in that.
But all the communities that I'm working with currently and in the future, we're going to have a backyard composting scenario and a consolidated collection, because both are extremely necessary to make communities work well. So we have a project we just funded in Reedfield, where they're going to have a consolidated collection center at the transfer station for 3 communities. In each of those communities, we're also going to support backyard composting, and they're going to buy 100 bins and distribute those among the citizens to get them started backyard composting. And that grant is available March 15th, around that time, and then again in August. And we're going to try to do grants every 2 times every year. So you would be eligible to apply for that grant as well. We give about $150,000 out each grant cycle.
Tonight I've learned that Councilor Klepak is going to take all of our food waste and he's going to pay for a fish ladder. I'm going to move to a vote.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
No.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Mayor Coelho, I'd like to motion for recess for 5 minutes. We're only halfway through the agenda and it's 9:30, and I'm pretty sure some of us would like to get up and stretch our legs and maybe get a sip of water.
We got 5 minutes, Patty. We can take an intermission.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Waiting for Councilor Klepak.
Yeah. Probably making some tea.
Patty, you didn't tell me they turned the heat off in here at night.
Oh no. Surprise. Resolution 43, acceptance of bid for public works equipment.
Move
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Right.
Go ahead, Foss.
It was brought to my attention, do we have the option of auctioning those vehicles off? Or are we trading vehicles in for the purchase of these? It's not what I'm chasing after. It's one that I want to explore. And the reason I say that is because of the properties that we've acquired. And now we've learned auctioning is yielding a better gain on that. Can you talk to that, Matt?
I think it probably is an option. I've heard that it was. It's pretty time consuming. I don't know, the resources that we would need to really market that, and it might be a little bit more than what we expect. Although I think the bottom line is we would get more value for it I think we could get more value if we did investigate that option.
Okay. So you'd be open to trying one vehicle and see how that comes back.
One of these or one of these and one in the future.
Down the road.
Yeah, down the road. I think we would be interested. Some of the guys on the crew were real interested in saying that what they were willing to give us for a trade really wasn't what the market wants for certain vehicles of that year and make and model. So yeah, we would check it out. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right,
I'll just say that both pieces of equipment, or all of them, came in well below what we had budgeted for them. So it was a really good time to buy. Very good time to buy.
And just to be clear, Matt, the money for these is coming from money left over from bonds from years ago that has to be spent and should be spent on this equipment.
Well, one of them is a surplus from 15, correct, that we're going to be using toward half of basically one piece of equipment. The rest is all from the 20 bond. We've spent Public Works for equipment. We've completely spent out our 19 bond. We're done. And now after we buy these 4 trucks, we'll be looking for one more piece of equipment. Then we'll be done with our 20 bond money with savings. Yeah.
Nice. We always like to save money. Anyone else? Let's move it to a vote.
Councilor Morris.
You're muted, Mike.
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira.
Yes.
Councilor Klepak.
Yep.
Councilor Green.
Yes.
Councilor Foss.
Yes.
Councilor Frankie.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 44, 2021.
A resolution providing for acceptance of bid for public works equipment.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to move to a roll call.
Councilor Morris.
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira.
Yes.
Councilor Klepak.
Yes.
Councilor Green.
Yes.
Councilor Foss.
Yes.
Councilor Frankie.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 45, 2021.
A resolution providing for appointing the city manager as a representative to the Main Service Center Coalition.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this new? This isn't new, right? Was Mike involved in this? Like, this is just formality, right?
It is. Mike was the delegate.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'll move to a roll call.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Coelho,
I'm not a counselor.
Counselor
Oh.
Thomas, you mean?
Thomas, I'm sorry.
Eddie's getting tired.
You just got promoted.
Tired, I'm sorry. Counselor Thomas, you were a yes?
Yes.
Voted 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Let's move on to ordinance number 46, 2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion on this? I'm trying to figure out what it is. Go ahead, Steve, and then we'll move on to somebody else.
That's to rezone a 40-acre parcel on pretty much the south end of 8 Rod Road to be used as a solar farm. About 10 acres of that 40 acres will be used that way.
About, you said 10 acres of the 40 acres?
Roughly.
How long is the lease? Are we tying up a lot of like residential possibility for residential land for a solar farm?
Yes. Not too much.
I'm going to go to Councilor Foss since he's shaking his head.
That's a wide open field surrounded by a bunch of people, the abutters. I don't know the outcome of the planning board's decision on this, but I do know that people in the area are opposed to solar farms out there. This is a beautiful field. The money that could be generated if we sold this outright, I get it from the developer standpoint. I understand it. But this is a beautiful piece of property to subdivide that up. It's beautiful land out there. I'm opposed to this.
So my understanding that they're only going to use about 15 acres. I mean, is Jason, you're part of this deal, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
So do you have a lease already for the entire 40 acres?
Well, I'm actually the engineer kind of working with the energy companies that are moving this forward. I know that the lease hasn't been signed yet, but it's been kind of organized that it would be for the entire 40 acres.
Is there anybody here from LA Properties?
Not that I'm aware of. Let's see here.
Bruce could.
No, not from LA.
Bruce could probably speak to the discussion that happened at the planning board.
I think there's some issues at the planning board meeting. Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't remember the vote, but I believe it was a unanimous vote to send it to you. You know, we can say we want to develop it, but we don't own it as a city. You know, Breton owns that land. So, you know, he's
I see Will
proposing
Boyle
it.
came on. We can ask him some questions.
We, yeah, I believe that would have passed, but we ended up, I believe, tabling it because the details weren't worked out on how much.
So you guys haven't voted on this yet? You tabled it?
No, we sent this to you to rezone it.
Yeah, it ended up being, unanimously recommended to go back to you. Yeah.
I was at that.
We debated it because of the size. They first talked about the whole parcel, and then Breton didn't realize that they weren't going to need as much. But when it came down at the end, they decided they were going to use the whole parcel. The firm putting the solar panels in, I believe, are going to lease all of that property from Breton. Is that correct, Jason?
Correct.
Okay. So we did vote 7-0 to send it to you. If the city owned it, then, and I don't know what the tax implication is, but I would expect that will generate some pretty good tax revenue.
I don't think so. I believe that this is under 5 megawatts, and we're not going to get nothing in tax revenue from this. It's going to be rather low. Rick, go ahead.
if I remember right, and Representative White can correct me on this, solar farms are falling under the 50% from the state, where we send off that tax bill to the state and we get it back at 50%. Secondly, even though they got a unanimous, the people that live on 8 Rod, everybody's told me they don't want the solar farms out there. I can't tell. I can't. This is coming back to County Road, back last year. I can't tell a developer what not to do or what to do with a piece of property. All I can tell you is what the people surrounding this piece of property and what they want to do with it are saying to me, and they don't. Like I've always said, nobody wants to sit on a deck at 8 o'clock in the morning and stare at a solar farm.
And that's what it is, Rick.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, I was asking.
This is one of those instances where it doesn't make sense, unlike the airport and the other piece of property up on Webb Road where it's hidden away from everybody. This one is going to be very much out in the open for everybody to see.
I'm going to go with Clepac real quick and then Green, but I'm not sure that's completely true. I think they're only using that 40 acres because the only way he wanted to, there was an issue with the zoning and whether or not they were going to zone like 15 acres of it. But it's my understanding that that's going to be much further away from the road and actually closer to the trailer park than it is. Like you're still going to have a ton of wide open field on the backside of this system. Am I correct in that, Jason?
Yes, there'll be a good amount of a field that's still going to be there. Then there's also going to be the part of the solar farm requirements that that the city has put in place. We do need a screen from all the abutters that have a view of it. Obviously, we don't need there's a good amount of wooded vegetation between us and the mobile home park, but the abutters to the north and the south and along 8 Rod Road will be buffered with screening trees and things like that. So it kind of is a balance of, do you want to see the field or do you want to see the screening trees? I'm not sure exactly what's the right balance, when I understand that a lot of people out here probably do want to look more at the field than to see a bunch of spruce trees. But that's the way the ordinance is written right now, that we'd have to kind of work through that with the planning board, but and with the abutters.
All right. I'm going to go to Councilor Clepac, then Councilor Green.
So, Rick, Councilor Foss, this is your ward, I think, and I just wanted to know more about what the residents right around the field, what their concern is. Is it a visual aesthetic problem? I've never been out to the parcel that I know of, and do they hunt out there? Is there like some other usage for that? Are they like, I don't know, what are they doing out there?
May I speak to that,
it's just a view.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick. I've been getting
so yes, a lot of it is view. In County Road last year, we ran up against a very similar situation. Our ordinance talks about having a fence line and 2 rows of trees. I think, if I remember right, vegetation starting at 4 feet. Okay, so it was 2 rows of trees at 4 feet. County Road had a very similar situation where the abutter was living right up against it. What we worked out with Dirigo Solar at that point was 3 rows starting at 8 feet of height. Okay, because it was going to be very visual for the abutter. The people around it, granted, they are a ways away. I'll be quite honest, they are a ways away. But everybody, Nancy, I can't remember the gentleman in the blue house, the state, one of the state commissioners for a lottery or something like that, just down the street, they've all expressed that they don't want solar farms out there. There may be a workable where we start with vegetation 3 rows deep to hide that fence line at 8 feet. We just haven't walked down that road yet.
Councilor Green.
Well, I guess my question is around what is the what is the reason to make a zoning change from to a solar district? Because while I'm definitely in favor of solar power, I do see the disadvantage of converting rural residential to solar, especially if the tax revenue is going to be minimal and it's not going to actually reduce our power usage, or so I think there should be a cost benefit analysis there when these things when these changes are made. I realize it's already gone through the planning board, but I think we should just clarify when we make a change like this, how it benefits the city.
Councilor Thomas.
Well, just to give you some history, Councilor Green, we had discussed just allowing solar farms in rural residential. But what we decided was that each one of these cases is different and should be reviewed on its individual characteristics. And so we created a new district, which is a solar farm district. And so in order to allow a solar farm into this property, it would have to be rezoned to solar farm. And I wouldn't characterize the tax dollars as minimal. It's not as much as, yes, the state's going to reimburse us for 50% of the value of the taxes, but we also get to assess the taxes based on the construction costs, which is different than what it would be if we were basing it on what it's actually worth once it's built. And a solar farm doesn't need services. Those solar panels they're not going to school. They're not calling the police. They're not calling the fire department, So yes, we do, we need to protect residential areas of development, but remember, and the lot sizes in rural residential can be huge. So, I mean, you could be, and if one child alone costs $10,000 to send through the school system. So if you have a family with one kid, they're going to cost more than the tax dollars generated by their house. So all of those things have to be considered. I'm not familiar with this property. Certainly if I just read the news article from the planning board. I didn't see anyone quoted in there as objecting that's an abutter. I don't know if they didn't know about the meeting. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't see anyone here tonight who's an abutter. But I certainly, if Rick thinks there are people out there who want to speak in opposition of this, we could possibly table it or
Sorry, Eric. I'll go to
because it's an amendment to zoning. It's going to take 2 votes anyway. So this is just a first vote, and if people do want to oppose it, they could show up at the next meeting and speak.
Steve?
And I'm sorry.
I thought Steve wanted to say something.
I did. And one of the things that we talked about when I was interviewing for this position was the shortage of housing in Waterville. And 5 megawatt array of solar panels is going to take up a lot of space that could be used for housing.
So I just want to say something. I was in. Sorry, Steve. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
You want to think about the balance of these things, because you have a lot of important needs, and you want to be careful you don't create destructive conflicts.
So I would just say one more thing. I got some of those same calls that Rick has gotten, and some of those people did speak at the planning board meeting. I will say that part of it, I think that Will and the owner here at LA Properties, they didn't have a lease out in place, and there was some stuff that was going on during the middle of the planning board meeting that really should have taken place ahead of the planning board meeting. And I'll be honest, I'll give you a chance to speak here in a minute. I don't want to see 40 acres get chewed up for the next 30 years that they want to lease this property. when they're really only going to use 15 acres of it. I think that there was an issue with the planning board when they were speaking that wasn't really spelled out in the beginning. And then LA Properties decided that they wanted to lease the entire thing, or they only wanted to subdivide the 15 acres that they needed for that. I am in favor of of you guys subdividing just those 15 acres if they can come to an agreement. I mean, if they can't, then so be it. But to tie up another 20 to 25 acres of land that could be buildable for housing for a project that's only going to give us so much. Will, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Jay. You're right, and I had a talk with Rick Breton, because when we as solar developers go into this, we look at a piece of property, we identify a property, and we don't have all the information from the utility about the infrastructure of the substation, of the power lines, of the switches, all this. So we propose a 4.99 megawatt array, which is the reason it's 4.99 megawatts is because with the technology that's available, it's just under 20 acres. So it doesn't trigger that DEP review of a major development. So when we presented this to CMP and we did our work looking at the substation and the infrastructure that was there, all that is allowed to go on this in this particular area is 3.5 megawatts. So we cut back from that 4.99 megawatts, which would have been 20 plus acres, with the road and all the infrastructure, to what Jason has laid out, which I think is a little over 14 acres right now. So Rick Breton wasn't included in any of this stuff. And I always look at this stuff, we're doing one in Dover Foxcroft. And the nice thing about doing this is we bring power in, we bring a road in for people. So they have a lot of the pre-development stuff done, so it increases the value of their property. That's the reason that we pulled this array all the way back off of 8 Rod Road as far as we possibly could. So it still leaves those fields along 8 Rod Road. And the other thing that it does is it stops the expansion of the trailer park. So, you talk about housing, Rick Breton is a trailer park developer. So you're going to have, in the next 5 years, probably one or the other. You're either going to have a solar farm there, or you're going to have an expansion of a trailer park. And I would assume he's going to try to do it all the way to 8 Rod Road. So after we had the planning board meeting and I explained to Rick, I said, Rick, we're perfectly fine with leasing the full 39 acres because it's one piece of property. I said, but you as a property owner, it benefits you to take that high value land on 8 Rod Road and turn that into house lots and leave the array behind the house lots. And after I had that conversation with him, he agreed. And then we agreed going forward was to get the full 39 acres approved for the solar array with the 3.5 megawatt array tucked back against the trailer park with a tree line buffer. And we did have some of the abutters that were expressing their concerns, not so much about the solar array, but about the trees that died from the expansion of the trailer park, and that they didn't want to approve an expansion with a solar farm or a trailer park unless that those trees were reestablished and replanted. And Rick in the last meeting said that he would do that. That was part of his plan. So, this is the conversation I had with Rick, and what we would like to do is get because it is one piece of property, get the entire piece of property rezoned so that we can do the solar, work with you folks, pull it back as far as we can off 8 Rod Road, put some screening in, and then if Rick chooses to, go back to the city council, go back to the planning board and rezone those lots on 8 Rod Road if he chooses, and if you allow him to do that, to turn it into house lots, not a trailer park, but house lots.
So, Will, I just got a question for you. I don't vote on this. I just get to ask questions.
Yep.
Well, Are you saying that if we let you have the entire 40 acres right now, that the majority of that field is what the people that are abutting are going to get to see?
So what you have seen from the plan, there's going to be a significant amount of field that they're going to see, and they're probably not going to see many solar panels from 8 Rod Road because we're going to have a screening in. You got to remember the point of connection, the point of interconnection for our power is out on the other road. So we can't even connect the power into 8 Rod Road. The infrastructure is not there. It's too far away from the substation. We're actually going through Punky Meadows with the power. So if we put that on 8 Rod Road, the solar array, that would cost us a lot more money because we would have to run power from Punky Meadows all the way out to 8 Rod Road.
And I will tell you, the opposition comes from the people that live out in 8 Rod Road, and I feel for them because it's double-edged for me. I don't want to see an expansion of the trailer park on 8 Rod Road either. I'll be honest about that. I want housing, but I want some single family. I want some nice, that area is ripe. I live right around the corner. I'm on Louise Ave, so I'm not far from where you'll be doing this. If you tell me that you can keep the majority of that as a field on the 8 Rod Road side, but you're going to put up a buffer so that they don't have to see as much of your facility, I'm more apt to go with that as opposed to just rezoning your piece.
Yeah, however way you want to do it, we can do it. And Jason can weigh in, and we want you guys to be included in the decision making of this. You know, when it goes to the planning board, we want you to have conditions on it. And if part of those conditions is that you would like to see housing on 8 Rod Road, or if the lots along 8 Rod Road ever turn into housing, that they have to be 2-acre lots or 1.5-acre lots with a minimum house size of 2,400 square feet. I think Rick would go along with that because he's not going to put trailers along 8 Rod Road. The park is, the solar array is going to stop the park, stop the expansion of the park right there. Because essentially the lease that we have with him is he's going to get the same amount of money off that acreage that he would by putting the housing in without having the infrastructure costs.
Okay. Rick?
I've got thoughts both ways here, and I don't want to. I've always said I like it when it makes sense, and I want to make sure that we balance the needs of the city, the needs of the residents out there, first and foremost. And I don't want a knee-jerk decision. I would take this. I would like to take the next 2 weeks. If the developers would be in agreement to the first meeting in March to come up with a pencil plan for this. My initial thought on this is this sounds an awful lot like County Road, and it's something that we can overcome. We just can't do it under a microscope, in a snap decision. County Road came up against this very same situation, and we were able to work our way through it. I don't want to burn bridges. I want to do the right thing for everybody, but most importantly, the people that already live out there. My thought process says that we do 8-foot trees along that fence line to cover that tree growth, but I can't see the property enough to make sure that it's going to cover over the panels after they're installed. I can't. This is a different terrain out there. It's more flat and it runs downhill from 8 Rod into the towards the trailer park on Punky Lane. I think I'd like to table it until next meeting. That's a motion, so that I can come up with and I'd like to talk with Will one-on-one along with Rick Breton and see if that's there.
I would just make the point, this has to be voted on twice, so it's going to be at the next meeting, whether we vote it to move it forward tonight or not.
Yep.
Right.
And I think if we could come to an agreement, we could vote it next week at the next meeting, and then vote at the next meeting and be done with it.
Claude?
If everyone is, I'm just going to put this out there. If you're in agreement to vote tonight to let it go to the next meeting, we'll put together some plans and spend the time, spend the money to do that, and work with you, send a draft to you, have you kick it around, throw it back to us so that we can actually have something on paper that's close to a final design. Not just with the array, but how we sort of envision what it's going to look like from 8 Rod Road, and get the distances off of 8 Rod Road, the heights of the trees, how we're actually going to have the tree layout. That gives us some time to put that together, and you to say, no, we'd like to see 11 trees instead of 9, and we'd like to see 8-foot tall trees instead of 6-foot tall trees. So this kind of keeps it moving forward because we do have 2 meetings to go through, and so we still have another one to go through, and you could not vote it through the next meeting, but that gives us the ability to say, okay, it's moving, let's take that next step, and then we can have something to present to Rick.
Well,
Right, we could table at the next meeting.
Yeah,
we can say yes to this. You guys start doing your work. We could take a look at it and table at the next one.
I'm gonna let Claude say one more thing, then I'll get back to you.
Excuse me, point of order. There's a motion to table on that's been made. Is there if there hasn't been a second, then the mayor should dismiss the motion. Otherwise, I'd like to call a question. So let's move past the motion to table.
I'm going to rescind my motion.
All right, I'm going to call the question. It's late. Let's get this meeting done with.
One last thing to end with. It's Will Boyle again. There's financial benefits beyond the property taxes for these solar arrays. You guys spent quite a bit of time talking about the dams, the infrastructure that's on the Kennebec. The funny thing about this is I'm a subcontractor for Brookfield Power. I do a lot of work, structural work on a lot of their dams, so I know exactly what you're talking about, all these dams. I know them very, very well. But there is a financial benefit to school systems, to municipalities for signing up, quote unquote, for the power off of these arrays. And there's been towns like North Yarmouth, Maine, that approached us and said, you guys have an array in Gray, a 2-megawatt array. We want to sign the schools up, the public works up, the town facilities up, and we want to open it up to anybody that lives in the town of North Yarmouth to sign up. So they wanted that array to actually be the North Yarmouth solar array, but it was in Gray, which was kind of weird. But we have 0 off-takers for this array, and we need to get it filled up, which we will. But we've taken sort of a conservative approach. But that is on the table if that is a benefit for the town, if you already haven't signed up for.
Actually, Will, that will segue into something that Rebecca would like to do. We're actually going to sort of reboot that solar committee, and some of that may be something that she wants to take up with that solar committee. Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important information, and that sort of goes back to the point I was trying to make before, that it's good, it's good to have. I'm definitely all for this if it's going to result in cheaper power for the city. So I think encouraging projects that actually benefit the city and aren't selling to consumers who are, somewhere else, that's a good reason to support it, in my view. So.
Patty, we're gonna move to a vote for now, just to move it forward to next week, and then Will, you're gonna get a hold of Rick Foss, and Rick and I will sit down and try to help work this out. This is Rick's ward. I live in that ward. I would like to sit in that meeting and make sure that we're getting what we need for a city and for our residents. But I'll move for a vote right now.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Is this a move to table?
No,
No.
No.
Okay.
We're gonna move forward.
Okay.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
I'll vote yes for right now.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Order
Thank you very much.
47, 2021.
An order providing for authorizing supplemental funding for COVID-19 expenses.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's move to a vote.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to resolution 49, 2021.
Are we on 48?
48, 2021.
Yeah, 48. A resolution providing for support for LD 32, an act regarding remote participation in public proceedings.
We're already doing this anyway, aren't we?
Second.
Any discussion, Rick?
The only reason I can't support this is that the verbiage on it, it says may, not shall, for the public proceedings. So I'm not for this until that wording gets changed to shall, because it opens up debate and when they're going to do it. No, make it shall or don't do it at all.
Are you talking about in the LD, Counselor, or in the resolution itself?
In the LD itself.
Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but
May is optional. Shall means you're going to do it.
so do you, is your position that you want it optional or not optional?
No, if we're going to make if we're going to do public proceedings via Zoom, just do it. But the way that the verbiage is written, it's leaning to the municipalities may offer.
Counselor, if I may interject here,
Absolutely.
A public body such as the City Council makes its own rules in proceedings. It's a public meeting, but the council is not required to allow public participation. That's a decision of the body. The Waterville City Council has opted to allow public participation in the past, and that's the precedent. That's what we do, but it's not required. So this bill was written by Maine Municipal Association for all municipalities, where some select boards or whatnot choose to have meetings where they don't allow public participation if it's not a public hearing. So I believe that's why there's the may language in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm just going to.
The motion is to adopt right now on the table?
Yes.
Has it been seconded?
Yes.
I'm always in favor of, if it's a public meeting, that we have public comment, just so we're clear.
Right, but that's our policy. It has nothing to do with what the language of the LD is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone is hesitant about this, I can offer rationale for strong support. I mean, this is clearly a move towards a healthier democracy, right? People, it's just increasing access to public governance.
Really, if I may, Mayor, this really was put in place because of the pandemic, because suddenly everyone was meeting virtually, and people were struggling, elected bodies were struggling with how to allow public participation. So we've all bumbled through it through the last year, and this really codifies the processes that we've put in place.
And we're already doing these things, correct?
Correct.
So as a city, we're already ahead of the curve. Okay. Rebecca?
I do think it's an inclusion issue, really, because it allows people to participate in these meetings that could not otherwise if they couldn't be physically present in a room. And it just, as someone said, it just expands the options for participation in these proceedings, which is healthy democracy.
All right. Any other comment? I'm going to move to a vote.
Council Morris,
Yep.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Nope.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Now 49-2021.
Woo-hoo.
We're almost there, people.
49. A resolution providing for support for LD 227 resolve to conduct a feasibility study for extending passenger rail service.
I'll just put out, this is something that I added.
Hold on. Move to adopt.
Oh, sorry. It's so late. I keep forgetting.
Second.
Oof. Now I can talk. Thank you, Eric. This is something that I added. I know that our state rep, Bruce White, is a co-sponsor of the bill. I didn't know that at the time, but I do now. This is about supporting a study to essentially see if rail service, passenger rail service from Portland to Brunswick to Augusta to Waterville to Bangor is feasible. This is, it's not going to cost us anything as a city. They're looking to get funds from something that is already supposed to go to things like this. They've been using the money for other things for the last decade. Is Bruce here anymore? Nope, Bruce must have left. Oh, there he is. Bruce, you got something you want to say about this?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It is a $300,000 price tag on it. So just like you in the city, this has to be weighed out. You know, the concept is a great concept to do the study. Senator Baldacci from Bangor area has sponsored this bill. I believe it's been sponsored in the past as well. But at the end of this, you know, at some point, this will come in along with other bills to the Department of Transportation and, you know, looked at with other items that will cost money as well. I believe there's another one similar to this to look at expanding from the study from the Portland to Auburn, Lewiston area. There was in the past, I think they carried that bill to this session. So there's some money involved, but I think it's a great idea to at least do a feasibility study. So I hope they'll support it.
I hope so too. I think our support, along with the other municipalities that are going to be touched by this, Bangor's already voted to support. I think other municipalities are going to be jumping on board. I think it's important for us, for our economic side. What this can do for us is pretty good. Any comments? If not, I will move to a vote.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
No.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
We are moving to 50-2021.
A resolution providing for support for LD 328, an act to fully fund and restore state municipal revenue sharing.
Move to adopt.
Any discussion? Then, Bruce, is there anything else coming up that is looking? So I'd love us to get to the 5%. Honestly, I'd love for Waterville to see more than 5%. Again, as a service center community, I think that we create a lot of this revenue and a lot more of it should come back to us. Is there anything that would point to getting an additional 1% for our service center communities?
I believe that actually Representative Madigan is putting in a bill. I haven't seen the details of that either yet. You know, so I've actually co-sponsored on the bill from State Representative Tom Harnett from Gardner. He put in the bill to get revenue sharing back up from where it is now, 3.75 to the 5%. You know, let's hope. It means quite a bit of money for Waterville, I know that.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more of it. I'd like to get a bigger piece of that pie if we can.
Well, and there are two parts to revenue sharing, and maybe Bruce can explain this better than me, but there's revenue sharing 1, which was the original version of revenue sharing, but there's also revenue sharing 2, which I think is meant to send money to places more like Waterville.
Yeah, we'll take it. Councilor Green?
Yeah, I did a little research on it, and in 2000, revenue sharing 2 was introduced that requires 20% of revenue shares to be distributed to municipalities with high property tax rates, which would be Waterville. So that would be a way that we could capture those additional revenues for the city, if that was included in the language.
Agreed. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to move to a vote.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Woohoo.
Mayor, we can't hear you.
You want to talk about the dam some more?
No. The dam took up too much of our meeting. We have councilor updates. I think that was the last one, right? Claude.
I know it's late, but just very quickly, down at the Green Street Park in the South End, the Friends of the Green Street Park has been offered a matching grant, 2-for-1, for up to $5,000 to help buy equipment and upgrade the park. If anybody's interested in helping out with a contribution, they have a Facebook page, the Friends of Green Street Park. They can give you more details, or you can just send a check to KVCAP noting that it's for the Friends of Green Street Park. Thank you.
Anybody else? No other councilor updates. I'll move to community notes. Then Steve, you can finish up. Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for talking about the South End roads and sidewalks so much, and really kind of taking an active plan. I've worked in the South End for 6 years. I've lived here for going on 3. And one thing that I hear over and over again is that, you know, the city doesn't care about our roads down here, which is now I can say is not true, because within these last couple of months, I've been hearing more and more conversation, and I know I've reached out to a couple of you guys and even brought you on walking tours to really talk about the road conditions. So I on behalf of the neighbors, neighborhood association, and my fellow South Enders, thank you. That's it.
All right, Steve, we'll move on to you.
Thank you. I have just a few things that I'm going to touch on with regard to the written manager's report that I sent out to you all tonight. And if you have any questions on the details that are in that report, please feel free to contact me and we can talk about them. First of all, I wanted to point out that at mid-year this year, our revenues are at 67% of what was projected for the entire fiscal year. And that's a good sign. A lot of it has to do with an increase in state revenue sharing, which has produced almost $400,000 in unanticipated revenue at mid-year. On the other side of the equation, our costs are at roughly 50% for the current fiscal year at mid-year, with the only exception to tracking on a normal year being the general assistance issue that you spoke with Mike about back in December. That continues to be an issue, and the spending is in the range of 300% of that budget. Aaron Burrows, the finance director, is going to be with us at the next meeting to give you a more in-depth discussion on the state of the finances of the city. Moving on to the police department, you all know that there was a fatal shooting in a police incident last Thursday night. I just wanted to let you know that according to the department's situational use of force policy, the chief is convening a review team that's going to be made up of a state police officer, a citizen, a member of the public, a police chief from another agency, and a licensed mental health worker. They'll look at the entire report of the incident and the people who were involved to determine how well they followed the department's policy. That should take a little while to get done, maybe a matter of weeks. At the same time, the State Attorney General's office is doing an in-depth investigation into the shooting and will render a report probably in a period of months. The fire department took delivery on the new tower truck. If you're interested in fire apparatus, drop by the station, take a look at it. The old one was traded to the manufacturer in exchange for this one. You're going to be seeing it driving around town for a number of weeks at this point because they have to train the drivers on how to maneuver it and how to navigate the small streets that Waterville has. Also, the firefighters have to be trained on how to use it and be effective with the equipment that's on it. I'm going to skip now to the airport and report to you that the airport is working hand in hand with Synergy and with the FAA to coordinate the various projects that are going on there regarding utilities and upgrades of the different facilities that the FAA has required, including the reconstruction of Taxiway A. That collaboration is going to result in a measure of cost savings for us so that we're not doing one project and then coming back and tearing up a part of that to do the next project. Then finally, on the various construction projects that we have going on, groundbreaking on the Main Street project is anticipated for early March. There should be a detailed schedule out within the next 2 weeks on street closings and a variety of different issues. The police shooting range out on West River Road is being worked on continuously with the frozen ground. They've been trucking in a lot of material that's going to be formed into the actual range early this spring. There's a building that has to be constructed there as well, and they anticipate that the range is going to open in the late spring of this year. The Alpha Pool project is about 60% complete. The contractors have been working indoors on electrical pump and piping work in the last 2 or 3 months. And once the weather breaks, they'll get back outside again to work on the outdoor features of the pool. The concourse reconstruction project, something that is a ways off at this point. In fact, the prediction right now is that that project won't get started until the spring of 2023. The reason is that although that project will add, I believe, 75 spaces to the concourse, it's going to take away about 50% of the spaces in order to build it all. And with the downtown Main Street project going on, that's going to take away a lot of other parking in the downtown area. So what they're working on doing is following the Main Street project with the concourse project so that the availability of parking is maximized during that time period. And then the Trafton Road project is over 90% complete. State DOT is telling us that the contractor is going to be back in the spring to lay down another course of paving and to do some roadside landscaping that was left undone when winter came in. And the rest of the report you can read. And like I said, if you have any questions, please call me. I'm done.
All right. Councilor Klepak, did you have something, or are we good?
Man, I'm done.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everybody have a good night.
Peace out.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.